Chapter 1450. The name of the second sealing point had been repeatedly mentioned and criticized, but until now, Yin Washing still could not figure out what was sealed in this so-called second sealing point. This world was the original main world of the distorted race. It was probably something that was sealed in the first star back then, and then it was exiled to the border because it sealed another demon. So what is it? Yin Nuashing asked curiously, twirling a strand of her hair with her fingers. She felt that this so-called second sealing point should be a key item, which could be seen from the fact that they used many lives in this world to form a place of exile, and then used it to suppress the seal. Young Master Shun shook his head. I really don't know, but we can go and take a look. They should be very busy with the graveyard of gods and demons now. Although the rear defense is not completely empty, there will be many loopholes, so, well, just fight your way in. Hui kept nodding with his arms crossed. Then we'll start fighting directly. We didn't bring a large force here, so it's troublesome. Yin Nuashing knocked on his shoulder and said helplessly, then turned to look at young Master Shun. Then let's go and take a look first. It's useless to sit here and talk too much. Let's go to the scene and see what's going on before we make a decision. Just in case. Seeing that he did not continue for a long time, young Master Shun, who had just stood up, could not help but ask, "What do you mean?" "Well, I only have a small number of people here, which is enough to deal with Chong Kong and the others, if his strength does not change during this period. So, just in case we start fighting directly, we'll tear them down all the way to their house and don't hold back. If there's anyone behind you who can be a force, I suggest you ask them to be prepared." Young Master Shun was stunned. He did not expect that they would directly attack if there was a problem, but in this case, it was not a bad thing to act quickly. "Okay, I'll go and inform them. By the way, when do you plan to go to the location of the coordinates?" "I just came out of the graveyard of gods and devils. I also need to inform others. Tomorrow, I still have half the day. I'll go make preparations and do something bad," Yin Nuashing said. He looked at the graveyard of gods and devils through the window of this temporarily built pavilion. There were still residual energy waves bursting into light and shining in the sky. That was the energy of the demon shadow they left behind. It was mainly used to attract the distorted clan in this world and open the hole they had prepared for them to jump into. By the way, has someone already started jumping down from the graveyard of gods and demons? Yin Nuashing asked young Master Shun, who was about to turn and leave as she pulled him back. Young Master Shun shook his head. The previous batch of heavenly gods of origin had fallen. The guys at the front had died in battle, and no news had been sent back. The people waiting in this world would think that something had happened to them, so they would delay the time to go down a little. They would only go down after they are fully prepared. Although there are no longer any heavenly gods at the front, this matter still needs to be dealt with. 5 days have passed, and it's probably the time limit for them to prepare. They will jump down no later than tonight. So, if you said that we should go to the coordinates immediately, I would have to persuade you." "Oh," Yin Nuashing responded and nodded indifferently. "It just so happens that I need to rest for a while. We'll go tomorrow. Right now, there are still important things going on in this world, and no one had the time to pay attention to what a few people in the corner were doing. Yes, they were busy jumping into wells, and they were literally jumping into wells. No one would have thought that the graveyard of gods and demons had been changed into such a dangerous place of death. It was basically a huge hole, and one would die if one went in. It was a huge hole that Yin Nuashing and the others had prepared to deal with enemies at the peak of the origin stage. Even if Chong Kong stepped into that place, he would lose a layer of skin even if he did not die. After getting I Ching and Lady Green to use some tricks to make the storm even more intense, the number of experts from the distorted clan gathered in this world tonight had increased by a lot. Yin Nuashing's soul, which had melted into the void, sensed the gathering of a large number of mid-tier and high-level heavenly gods of origin. Even some of the experts who were stationed on this planet had appeared. Young Master Shin also brought news that some of the garrison forces stationed at important places had been mobilized. It seems that they are very nervous about the graveyard of gods and demons, Yin Nuashing said. The demonic shadow born from the heart has a great influence on our clan, and it is an influence that is completely uncontrollable. Even if this kind of result will cause them to go further in the non-orderly world, they are unwilling to accept it. What they need is an outcome that they can control. Young Master Shun had also returned with some news. We can confirm that their scale has increased by about 2 times. Some of the people who were stationed at important places have been mobilized. Compared to sending reinforcements from the top, it's faster to gather forces on the ground. Beside them, Hui kept sighing and interrupting the conversation between the two. Yin Nuashing and young Master Shin turned their heads together and heard Hui sighing. Feng, I still don't understand how that demonic shadow emerged from their thoughts and mental images. I'm also very concerned about this point. Our clan has been investigating for a long time. 2 eras have passed, and there is no result at all. Young Master Shin shook his head and sighed. There are many guesses, but there can only be one truth. So, even if I have many guesses, there's no way to accurately determine which result it is. The only situation that I think is very similar is the resonance of faith. Yin Nuashing played with a strand of hair on her temples and said slowly, although the word faith is used, it has nothing to do with faith. It is just a phenomenon, similar to the phenomenon of thoughts and obsessions of living beings. A God's descent created by the resonance of the thoughts of countless common individuals? Hui understood. Hui understood and rubbed his chin as he pondered. Well, from what you've said, it does feel a bit like that. Although you can't possibly miss the guy who made you what you are today, there's always another way to pass down a thought: hatred or resentment. When the hatred and resentment of a race are stacked to a certain extent, coupled with such a high level of power that stands at the non-order level, it's hard to guarantee that nothing strange will happen. Born from the heart might be such a thing. Maybe. Young Master Shin sighed. It was useless to think about it now. After seeing the Creator's shadow with his own eyes, he did not think about it anymore. The latter gave him too much of a deterrent. Even the 2 people who stood at the top of the order at the moment could not do any harm to it. It made him feel a little scared. If possible, he hoped that he would not come into contact with it. Just in case, I've contacted everyone. Those who can join the battle will stay behind, and those who are preparing to flee will be making preparations. Once chaos breaks out, everyone will be able to react at the first moment. 15% of a life force. It won't cause too much of a stir, right? It won't be good to attract too much attention. Hui frowned. Young Master Shin smiled and said, "Don't worry. They have been living with the other people and are quite scattered. Even if there is a problem, in the eyes of others in each world, it is just a moving operation." Yin Nuashing nodded. It seemed that young Master Shun and the others had indeed prepared a plan for this scene. One was to wipe out the whole race and turn them into ashes. The other was to arrange for the battle to be carried out. However, when it came to their combat power, how many heavenly gods of the origin realm are there? Young Master Shin laughed dryly. He lowered his head and muttered, "Well, including Uncle Yi, there are 7 high-level origins, 12 mid-level origins, 40 to 60 low-level origins, and the rest are. Phew, work hard on your own. I was thinking of getting a few coolies to help. Judging by the number, you guys are good enough to take care of your own people." Yin Nuashing sighed. Young Master Shin scratched his head awkwardly. "Actually, those have been allocated. The ones I mentioned to you just now are the ones who can fight." "Oh, then let them be ready. No matter how small a mosquito is, it is still meat. But if they really come out, you should let them be the backup in case. Well, if they get too excited on the battlefield and hit you with their faces, you may be injured." Young Master Shun's expression became very subtle. Yin Nuashing shrugged. He knew that there was an organization that had been killed 2 years ago at the stage of all members defecting. If that little amount of people and power could still be called an organization, they would not and could not have too much power. In such a situation, the fact that they still had the power to do whatever they wanted in the lower and middle realms was already shocking enough. Then, when he compared the power of Long Sky and the others, he was even more shocked. Their strength was weak, but it did not matter. From the beginning, he did not expect to encounter such a thing. The distorted race was divided into 2 parts. Although one part was like a flame that was about to be extinguished, and there were even a few sparks left, the situation was much better than he thought at first. However, he was a little puzzled. Speaking of which, such a big thing that involves the origin of your race and the situation of this, and that has happened, why didn't the great executor of your race show up? Young Master Shen was not surprised by this puzzlement. The great executor did not need to be present during the 3 eruptions of the Moon Lake, because there was no need to use their level of strength. Also, in the past, the outbreak was not to such a degree. I guess the higher-ups did not think it was necessary to make such a big fuss. After thinking for a moment, he said, but after killing some of the middle and high-level members, maybe some sharp forces will appear in this. Young Master Shun was stunned for a moment. Yin Nuoxing and the others also turned their heads in puzzlement. The former paused at the end of the sentence, and the tone of his voice was raised in doubt, which sounded strange. After a while, young Master Shun let out a strange cry. He reached into his clothes and took out a leaf the size of a face. The leaf was engraved with lines similar to divine patterns and magic patterns. He put the leaf on the table, raised his hand and summoned a flame, and threw it on the leaf. Dark red flame. Is this the ordinary flame of your race? We asked curiously. Yes, because order and energy are not from the plane of order. Even this ordinary thing is a little different from the ordinary things of order. Young Master Shen nodded and explained his action. Before this, Uncle Yi told me that if the matter is solved smoothly and I have plans to continue the operation, I should light this leaf. It will tell me an important message. Jing Yuanji sensed that something was wrong. I think that Uncle Yi has already predicted that we will appear here. And then... Impossible. Uncle Yi is very powerful. But how can he predict your affairs? Young Master Shen smiled and shook his head. Based on the degree of opposition between non-order and order, how could Uncle Yi predict the affairs of the top few people of order? As Yin Nuoxing thought about it, he suddenly thought of Chu Fun and said softly, if the target he's targeting isn't us, but the big picture of something, then it's possible. Bypassing the opposition and blockage of the rules, taking advantage of a loophole. Yes. It is possible. Hui murmured and nodded. Young Master Shun's face stiffened. It can't be, right? The result is out. The woman in green interrupted their conversation at the right time. Everyone gathered together and saw something floating above the dark red flame. It was a picture like some kind of image of words and the actions of a small person, but it didn't look like a coherent picture. Yin Nuoxing, Hui, and the other two shook their heads to show that they did not understand. This was a matter of another level and another domain. Young Master Shen stared at it for a while. After the flame burned out and the leaf turned into ashes, he nodded. After a while, he looked back and saw that the others were staring at him. How is it? I understand. This is a special symbol that Uncle Yi created himself. Others can't understand it, but Uncle Yi taught me. I can understand it. Let me organize it. Young Master Shen scratched his head and organized his words. After a while, he said, well, the general meaning is gun against gun, king against king, front and back positions reversed, changes in the dark. Do you guys think of anything? No, not at all. The 3 shook their heads. Young Master Shen scratched his head in confusion. Uncle Ye's deduction has always been accurate, but we need to guess what it means ourselves. Well, Hui suddenly slammed the table with an excited face, startling the others. When we're going to do something tomorrow, will Zhang Kong come to catch us? And then they will face us directly? We are trapped in the enemy camp and fighting hard. What's the result? Yin Nuoxing frowned. From the literal meaning, it is quite appropriate, but is it that simple? Anyway, let's arrange everything first. Be careful when we act. The rest can only pray that our luck is not too bad, young Master Shen said. Everyone nodded. Prophecies and deductions were not important. The important thing was that they needed to work harder when they acted. Arrange everything well and pay attention. Then the prophecy would probably be in vain. While Yin Nuoxing and the other 2 were recuperating and informing the other troublemaker teams lurking in this world to get ready tonight, young Master Shen was also using all the means he could to make absolutely sufficient preparations. Although the 2 teams could only prepare so much, because there was really nothing to prepare. We don't need to go with you. Is it really okay? It was not Qing Jun or Yi Qing who asked this question, but their new member, Xing LV. When he suddenly spoke, Yin Nuoxing and Hui were a little surprised. This was the first time he had taken the initiative to look for them. They even wondered if this kid had eaten the wrong thing in this world. After looking at the two adults in their souls for a minute, Xing LV was defeated. He scratched his head and laughed dryly to divert their attention, and said, by the way, it's just a little bad feeling. Although it may be a little arrogant to say in front of you, every time I have this feeling, there will always be a little. It's very, well, troublesome and dangerous. The last time I had this feeling, I was arrested and brought to justice. Yin Nuoxing and Hui rolled their eyes at the same time. Yin Nuoxing said, okay, don't worry about it. You guys just stay here and wait for orders. It's reasonable to say that there should be nothing in this world that we can't deal with. You guys should be on guard against the movement of the world barrier. If Zhang Kong really rushes over with thousands of troops and wants to fight us head-on, inform us. Okay, Xing LV shrugged and cut off the soul transmission. Hui and Yin Nuoxing looked at each other and asked, why did that kid suddenly become so active? Since he's here, let's just take things as they come. Yin Nuoxing replied, that kid is a little similar to me. Since he can't resist and can't avoid joining here, then he should just obediently work for others. He's too lazy to go and don't want to think more about this. So, in fact, his freeloading spirit is acting up again. Xianlei could not help but sigh at Xing LV. Xing LV grimaced and looked at the sky, not knowing where to look. Well, let's not care about that. We just have to be on guard. Speaking of which, I've been out for a walk recently, and the bottleneck seems to have loosened a little. This time, after advancing, I should encounter the seal. It's the tokens you got from the two masters that are affecting you, causing cracks to appear in your sturdy bottleneck. It's estimated that in a few years, you'll be able to reach the 9th level of origin. You'll be at the peak of the 1st level, Xianlei said. Xing LV took out the two tokens hanging around his neck. One was like a scepter, and the other was a round bead. It was dark red inside, like a cluster of nebula. These two things are so powerful. Well, since it's a good thing, then let's not think about it. Time continued to pass peacefully for a few hours. Yin Nuoxing and the others have been monitoring the movements of the moon boundary lake. They saw that the people who had gathered finally began to jump down. Seeing the scene of them jumping down, Huey's reaction was even bigger than young Master Shin's. He jumped up and danced and clapped for joy. Yin Nuoxing despised him. At first glance, it was obvious that this kid had never cheated anyone before. He could be so excited about digging a hole for people to jump into, although his face was also filled with a sinister smile. Young Master Shun had been counting the time. Occasionally, one or two names would pop out from his mouth. When he heard the name, Yin Nuoxing and the others knew that another high-level figure had jumped into the giant pit without hesitation. The wind was blowing and the water was cold. After this, come on, we should also take action. It was still late at night. Young Master Shun suddenly stood up. Yin Nuoxing glanced at the moon boundary lake. There was still a group of people gathering there. It was estimated that they were the last group. Soon, they would all jump into the well. Young Master Shun nodded and stood up. After confirming that everything was correct and that everything was ready, young Master Shun waved his hand. The woman in green put away the temporarily built pavilion. A group of people jumped out from the hillside and rushed in the opposite direction of the moon boundary lake. After about 10 minutes of careful haste, young Master Shun led Yin Nuoxing and the others to a place. It was a natural cliff about 10,000 feet high. The cliff was inlaid with many rugged rocks. There were many traces of history and the power of time left on it. This was an unusual thing. After being ravaged by the dark energy storm a few days ago, there was no complete scenery on this planet. At this moment, they could see a natural cliff. Oh, wrong. It was not completely natural. At the bottom of the cliff, there was a door frame of an arched door about 1,000 feet high. It was just a door frame made of stones. There was no door. There were torches on both sides of the door frame. However, such a conspicuous door was not guarded by any guards. We could not help but say, you can come and go as freely as a public toilet. Yin Nuoxing was speechless. Young Master Shin laughed dryly. There's a very strong energy shield here. Of course, there are no guards. But if someone touches the ear of the shield, the guards inside will be alerted. At this time, it's up to me. As young Master Shin spoke, he walked forward and took out a scarlet scepter. Yin Nuoxing looked at it carefully. It was exactly the same as the scepter in the hand of the internal law enforcer that she saw the other day. He raised the scepter and waved it in the air in front of him. Suddenly, the space in front of him splashed water. A huge shadow appeared in the space in front of him. This layer of the shield was completely black. The weak moonlight could only illuminate the rough shape of the shadow. There was no way to fully reveal it. Come on, let's go in. Young Master Shun held the scepter tightly and waved at Yin Nuoxing and the others. The latter and the others quickly followed him into the shield. Then, he closed the shield again with the scepter. Chapter 1451. The space in front of them did not change much. They were walking in a spacious stone passage, which was as tall as the arched door frame. There was some weak energy in the stones in all directions. Combined with the light in the dark mountain, Yin Nuoxing and the others had a rough idea of the function of the energy, but they ignored the energy reaction. This passageway had existed for God knows how many years. Even the ordinary stones under his feet were full of bumps and hollows, as if they had been beaten by the power of time. Hui Qing's every step was heavy, and he could even create a hole in the ground. All the stone powder was piled up at the bottom of the hole. Young Master Shun changed his face and walked at the front of the passageway. He held the scepter in his hand and swung it left and right, as if he was checking if there were any obstacles here. The passageway seemed to be going downwards. The slope was gentle, and there were no stairs in sight. We walked for a while in this gloomy and depressing place. He felt that he could not hold it in anymore. He could not help but say to young Master Shan in his soul, "Don't you guys have any guards in such an important place?" There are guards, but they are inside. People rarely come to this place, except for the occasional shift. Well, I've seen this place once or twice. That's about it. Young Master Shun replied softly. Is this a cave? Or is it a cave? I don't know. This is my first time here. I'm more nervous than you. Yin Nuoxing looked left and right from time to time. Occasionally, he would put his hands together and let the energy surge between his hands. Others did not know what he was doing. Only the little angel knew. This suspicious and cautious guy left a lot of energy runes along the way. Every rune could blow up this planet. If Chong Kong really came in to catch him, whether he came in or not, as long as he came close to this place, at least 60 energy runes would let him enjoy the baptism of energy. After walking down for about 2 hours, just when Hui and young Master Shun were about to change the topic from the purpose of the establishment of this place to the daily problems of Chong Kong, a glimmer of light finally appeared in front of them. It was a weak flame, and at the same time, a breath of life appeared in their senses, which startled them. Hui and young Master Shun both shut up. They let the energy surge secretly. Yin Nuoxing confirmed that there was no obstruction in front of them. When they suspected that there was someone guarding, they slowly walked to the place where the light came from. Looking at the open scene in front of them, they could not help but look up. This place was much wider than the passage just now. In front of them was a hall that had obviously been well built. It was a gray hall built with some energy crystals and some kind of metal. It was about 10,000 feet in length, width, and height. There was not a single gap on the clean floor, and there were no strange patterns. Except for the dust that covered it, it was so neat that it looked like it had been newly renovated. The dust and the brittle stone passage meant that no one had been here for a long time. There are only 2 paths in this hall, one in front and one at the back. At the bottom of the right wall, there's a figure sitting with his legs crossed. He was wearing a shabby gray robe that was stained with dust. He was motionless, as if he had turned into a stone statue. When Yin Nuoxing and the others stepped into the ground, which was obviously different from the cave, a loud shout suddenly exploded here. Stop! Yin Nuoxing and the others turned their heads calmly and looked at the figure. They saw that he slowly raised his head and said in a hoarse voice, "Who are you? I don't remember receiving the order to replace me." Young Master Shun calmly walked forward, holding the scepter with both hands and bowing. Senior, there's a big problem in the graveyard of gods and demons. Lord Chong Kong ordered to mobilize all available forces to help suppress it. We were ordered to temporarily guard it. That person's eyes were filled with a gaze that made him feel slightly shocked. Order? Slogan? Young Master Shun's heart trembled slightly. He felt as if he was about to be seen through under this gaze. He hurriedly took a deep breath and said, Senior, we came from the main world to make an announcement. We've never been here before. Lord Chong Kong only told us to come and didn't say anything else. Why don't you confirm it with Lord Chong Kong personally? However, the outside world has been turned upside down. All the internal law enforcers stationed here have urgently gathered and are now heading to the graveyard of gods and demons. The gray-robed figure narrowed his eyes and glanced at them one by one. Then he stared at the scepter in young Master Shun's hand for a long time. After a while, he turned his head and looked into the distance. There was a slight change in his gaze. He pondered for a while and raised his hand to leave an energy barrier to seal the passage ahead. He nodded to young Master Shun. It is indeed a scepter from the main world. In that case, you will guard this place for me. I will go and help. Senior, take care. Young Master Shun cupped his hands again. The person in front of him had already disappeared. They waited for a while. Yin Nuoxing's spirit swept back and forth for a while. After confirming that there was nothing wrong, Yin Nuoxing said, I didn't expect that there would be an origin peak guarding this place. What does he mean by leaving this barrier behind? Hui pointed at the scarlet barrier and could not help but frown. To prevent us from barging in. He is quite cautious. He knows that there is no time to confirm anything, but he can't just leave us here casually. After all, the eruption of the moon boundary lake outside is real. We can only go and help with some doubts and leave a barrier while we are at it. Yin Nuoxing patted the barrier. I suppressed our energy between the middle and high-level origin, and there was no problem with the energy camouflage. He didn't see through it, and probably thought that we couldn't do anything. Status symbols are still useful. I guess that half-believing is because of this scepter, Hui said. Yin Nuoxing nodded and looked around for a while. Then, she said in her spirit, I Ching, there should be a gray-robed cloak monster heading towards the moon boundary lake. If you see him jump, squeak. Squeak. Master Feng, that guy rushed over there a minute ago and has already jumped in, I Ching replied. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. Okay. It is quite convenient to use racial matters to trick people. After confirming that the gray-robed guy had jumped into the pit to seek his own death, Yin Nuoxing casually used the Netherworld Ruins sword to cut a hole in the barrier. The group squeezed into the space behind it and continued to move deeper. Hui suddenly said, There shouldn't be any other guards in there, right? Young Master Shun shook his head. There is only one guard here. A peak origin guardian is enough to take this place seriously. There won't be any other guards. They walked from the hall to another passage. However, this time, the floor of the passage was the same gray-white color. There were no surprises or dangers along the way. They kept going deeper and deeper. For the time being, they did not encounter anything. There were no traps, no defenses. That was nonsense. The most powerful defense force had already been tricked into jumping into the well. Why do you always like to stuff things into the planet's stomach? We could not help but complain as they walked. You ask me? How would I know? Yin Nuoxing rolled her eyes at him. He probably thought that the inside of the planet was safer, so he stuffed everything inside. They continued to go deeper for a while. Suddenly, a huge thing appeared in the empty space. They could only see part of it from the passage. Yin Nuoxing and the others looked at each other and quickened their pace. They crawled out of the passage and looked up to see the full appearance of the huge thing. It was a gigantic metal tower, a gigantic tower that sat in the middle of an underground cavern. The ceiling of the cavern was made of ordinary stone, and the floor was grayish-white in color. There were layers upon layers of powerful energy barriers surrounding the gigantic tower. Those barriers were surging with powerful, twisting energy, but the color was a light red. There were slightly distorted and blurry scarlet energy runes flowing within the barriers. Young Master Shun and the woman in green felt dizzy just by looking at the runes. Shoo! Yin Nuashing whistled and raised her finger to point at the runes. That thing is from our place. It is exactly the same. The only difference is that the energy that drives the runes is your energy. What are its specific functions? We asked. Sealing and defense are just the basic functions. Yin Nuashing frowned. The main function is to seal the energy so that the energy stored in the energy space can be preserved intact. I also saw the shadow of other energy runes. It is used to stack the energy repeatedly to strengthen the energy. Oh, and Wheelie quickly waved his hand to stop Yin Nuashing. Just tell me what this tower is used for. Yin Nuashing nodded and looked carefully for a while. She stared at the energy runes flowing on the barrier and gradually frowned. This tower is probably a space that stores an infinite amount of energy, and it is an infinite amount of berserk energy. The energy inside is constantly accumulating under the effect of several energy runes and energy runes. It is constantly breaking the limit of the rules and accumulating energy. There is also a chance that the energy will mutate and become stronger. However, there is no way to extract the mutated energy for research, so it can only be used. It is a huge energy space. Wheelie finally understood. Why did they use such a huge space to store energy? And it is hidden in such a place. It feels like there is some unspeakable secret. We will know once we go in. Yin Nuashing did not think much. She walked forward and easily cut open the barrier. This thing does not have much defensive power, but it can repair itself. If we want to completely destroy it, we can just directly destroy the core. Moreover, they have probably fused all these things into the core. Once the core is destroyed, the tower itself will be damaged. The core is probably... He lowered his head and looked down. Probably below. We still have to go further down. We took a deep breath. Speaking of which, there's a space of pure energy inside, right? It is not good to go in directly under the baptism of pure energy, is it? Yes, yes. Yin Nuashing nodded repeatedly. So, Wheelie laughed. Suddenly, he saw Yin Nuashing grab his arm. He could not help but be stunned. Sweat broke out on his face. You can't do this to me. You can't do this to me. So the thick-skinned one, walk in front. You. With all his strength, he threw Wheelie like a javelin towards the metal tower in front of him. The sonic boom that cut through the air was mixed with Wheelie's high-pitched scream. Why is it always me? Boom. The sound of a hole being blasted in the tower was mixed with the sound of energy impact from the disturbance of the stable pure energy. A ray of light as bright as the sun gushed out from the hole that was emitting thick smoke, illuminating the underground space as bright as the center of the sun. The burst of violent energy was suppressed by a sneeze. The high-energy reaction gradually decreased and the light suddenly dimmed. Then, a valiant figure appeared at the hole. Wheelie waved his hand at Yin Nuashing and the others. Okay, come up. Yin Nuashing turned her head and whispered in Jing Yuanji's ear, You see, I told you Hui is too thick-skinned. His skin penetrated the metal tower. Jing Yuanji tried hard to hold back her laughter. Although she agreed with Master Feng, she also respected Master Hui. So, she could only pretend to be stupid and not say anything. But in her heart, she deeply agreed with the answer. There were still some energy flames flashing at the whole of the tower. That was the phenomenon of the pure energy surging inside. Yin Nuashing put an energy shield on young Master Shun and the woman in green. The group jumped into the hole of the metal tower. We stared at Yin Nuashing with a resentful face. You can't always throw me out. I'm a solid shield, not a spear. Your own defense is not worse than mine. Yin Nuashing spread her hands. Didn't you say that I would beat people and you would be beaten? Then we did not say anything. He sighed deeply and looked wronged. It was true, but he did not expect that he would be beaten for so long. The inside of the tower was a space with nothing but pure energy. The space they were in at the moment was filled with surging energy. They could feel the energy that was comparable to the peak of the origin power crazily surging in the metal tower. If the shield was removed, Yin Nuashing and the others would be fine, but young Master Shun and the woman would be turned into ashes in an instant. It doesn't seem to be anything. We threw another layer of shield on everyone. He looked at the space inside the energy tower and did not see anything strange. Yin Nuashing looked up. The energy tower was about to reach the top, so they should look down. Below, there was a space that was drowned in energy and nothing could be seen. There's nothing up there. Let's go down. A few of them responded. Hui took out the guardian's shield, propped up the barrier, and took the lead to fall down the tower. Yin Nuashing couldn't help but whisper to Jing Yuanji, "Look." Although he complained a lot, he's still very honest. Hey, I heard you." Hui turned around and threw a glance at Yin Nuashing angrily. The muffled sound of energy explosion came from below the metal tower. Maybe it was because they had just shaken the integrity of the tower, but the energy inside no longer maintained a perfect balance. Maybe Hui broke the balance in the depths of the tower when he rushed in to maintain their balance. In short, the energy here showed signs of a riot. The movement was much larger than a simple surge of energy, as if there was an energy explosion in the depths of the tower. Jing Yuanji pulled on Yin Nuashing's arm. "Master Feng, the energy flow in the depths of the space is abnormal. It seems that there's some kind of huge object or a domain formed by a huge energy that is different from the energy tower, blocking the energy flow and forming another quiet space below." "Oh, you feel it too." Yin Nuashing nodded. "Besides, there's a little life force down there." He turned to look at young Master Shun. "The life force unique to your race." Young Master Shun was stunned. "There are people in my race down there? Are they locked up here?" "Who knows? Let's go and take a look. It just so happens that the core of the tower is right below here. Although I don't know what they're using it for. It's so intricate and secretive. Destroying it should make them feel distress for a while." As Yin Nuashing spoke, he turned and saw young Master Shin frowning. His eyebrows stretched and then knitted together, as if he was struggling with something. "What's wrong? Did you remember something?" Young Master Shin nodded in agreement. "I think so. This tower is probably older than my grandfather. It must have been here a long time ago. In the beginning, it was still standing on the ground. I don't know when it was placed on the ground. Back then, there were no runes or charms from the realm of the gods. It was just a metal tower. Also below, I can't remember what's inside this tower. If you can't remember, you will know when you go and see for yourself." Yin Nuashing turned her head and looked at him. The speed of their descent increased. After a while, they reached the deepest part of the tower. Their eyes suddenly opened, and then they were stunned. Below them was a huge hemispherical space. It was a very spacious underground. The hemispherical space was estimated to be about 100,000 feet in diameter. According to the size of the planet, it was about 1/3 of the underground space. At the bottom, rich energy rose here like a prairie fire. There was a huge fire pillar rising from the bottom to the top of the hemispherical space, like a fountain in the sea. F***CK, there is too much energy stored here. Feng, the energy reserve station that these guys built is as big as yours. We could not help but say, "Huh, did you remember something wrong?" Yin Nuashing tilted her head and looked at him strangely. She raised her right hand slightly, and a light burst out from the top of her palm. After a while, the light turned into a black ball, and the dots of starlight symbolized that it was a world of light. "Our energy reserve station has 36 worlds, and I have updated it in real time. There is even origin energy in here." Everyone was speechless. This was simply inhumane. Although the heavenly gods of the origin level had their own ways of storing energy, there was no one like him, who had 36 worlds in one go. His spirit and soul were really free. Hui paused and scratched his head. "Oh, that is the specification of several eras. I remembered wrongly." Waving her hand to skip this little episode, Yin Nuashing looked around and finally fixed her eyes on a place. Everyone looked over and then looked at each other. They waved their hands and pushed away the dense energy that was blocking their vision. The space suddenly became much clearer. Before Yin Nuashing and the others could see clearly what was behind the space, the place suddenly shook. He looked at the space and said a little gloatingly, They have only used my runes and charms. Although I don't know why they insist on using the ones I made, it seems that it has caused them quite a lot of trouble. A few charms that have no spirituality and cannot change on their own will not be able to calm the huge energy here again. Even if we don't do anything, it will explode in a while. This is the consequence of not reading the manual before using it. He kept nodding his head with his arms crossed. There is no manual for this thing. It can only be said that it is the result of not having enough authority to use it. More or less. Don't worry about these details. Hui waved his hand and waved his hand, making the space in front of them clear again. Let me see what is hiding behind. What the hell is this? Chapter 1452. The underground hemispherical space that was drowned by the ocean of energy was shaking because of the violent energy. Flames rose from the ocean like gushing springs, rolling the peaceful energy into a storm. Soon, the energy in this enormous underground space would be destroyed in a violent and crazy riot and blown into the sky. When the space covered by the endless energy was opened, the Lord Protector of the God Realm let out a sound that was no weaker than the turbulence of the energy in this space. It startled everyone around him. Yin Nuashing slapped him on the shoulder. What are you yelling for? I was just stunned for a moment, but you scared me. Air. If it were anyone else, they would be scared too, right? Hui laughed dryly and turned to young Master Shun and the woman in green. Young Master Shun and the woman nodded blankly in agreement. After the energy in that space was turned over, 8 gigantic life forms appeared. They were at least 10,000 feet tall, and their bodies were like rock and earth, like ice in the sea. Their cracks exposed the energy that was full of dark light, but they had the appearance of humans. They looked like energy spirits that had the appearance of humans, such as elemental spirits, the embodiment of the fire element, the embodiment of the water element. Those were just the appearance. Without exception, there was an extremely terrifying dark energy surging in their bodies. Compared to the energy of the demonic shadow, the only difference was the strength. The rules and order were exactly the same. Yin Nuashing and the others looked at each other and hurriedly turned to communicate with each other through their souls. Young Master Shun was the first to speak. I know what that is. That is the first seed. Yin Nuashing thought for a moment. The first few members of your race who were corrupted and distorted by the demonic shadow? Young Master Shun nodded with a serious look. Yin Nuashing and the others also looked very serious. If that was the case, then it would be very bad. They still had the dark energy of the first generation in their bodies. Although it was much weaker, if they really wanted to fight, Yin Nuashing would have to use energy mixed with the origin energy to fight against the energy in their bodies. The good news was that the 8 original seeds were bound here by energy chains and were being washed by countless energies. From the looks of it, they seemed to have become one with the energy in this space. The energy had become every inch of their bodies, and the energy was flowing according to a certain trajectory. When it came out of their bodies, it would become abnormally violent, but it would not be contaminated by the dark energy. For some reason, it was unknown. First of all, we can rule out the possibility that they like to keep the ferocious beasts in the stomach of their home planet. Then, according to young Master Shin's information, they should not have been treated badly when they were first locked in here. It's just that they became crazier and more irrational. After a long period of transformation, they became crazy monsters. They might have even affected the stability of the order of their descendants. In the end, they had no choice but to be locked in here by their descendants. We put his hands on his waist and flicked his long hair. If I was the one who was in charge of this, after I was done with this, I might throw them to the realm of the gods to wreak havoc. Yin Nuashing was stunned. These are the first seeds. Their ancestors threw them out just like that? Hey, look at the twisted and crazy faces of Long Sky and the others. What's the big deal about deceiving one's master and destroying one's ancestors? Yin Nuashing thought about it carefully and felt that it was true. Although it was a little worse, it was not a big deal. After all, it did not have much to do with them. He also thought about it. If these 8 monsters were thrown on the realm of the gods, it would cause a huge storm. If they appeared on the realm of the gods without warning and caused destruction everywhere, it would be enough to make them panic. If they were used in a war, they might be able to mobilize 1/10 of their strength. Even if he were to go into battle himself, it would be enough to tilt the scales of the war significantly. We probably thought the same, so Yin Nuashing nodded. It's a thought, but there's no guarantee that they will have more unique means. Yin Nuashing turned his head to look at the huge commotion here. After thinking for a while, he said, "But no matter what, we are not here to fight with them. Think of a way to stabilize the energy here and let them continue to suppress them here." Everyone reacted at this moment. They came here to explore the second seal point and accidentally saw this energy tower, so they came down to take a look. They did not come here to farm maps. Moreover, if they were to fight this time, it would not be as simple as fighting in the space of consciousness. The commotion would definitely spread to the outside world and let the whole world know. At that time, they would really end up being surrounded by people. "Hey, wait, I have a bad idea." Hui hurriedly grabbed his waving hand and revealed an evil smile. "What are you thinking of doing?" Hui grinned maliciously. "Since there is a 1 in 10 or 1 in 100 chance that they are using this to deal with the celestial realm, why don't we turn the tables around and let their ancestors slap their juniors? Throw these 8 original seeds out, and they will definitely cause a huge mess. At the same time, this seal will also be broken, and the land of exile will be fine." In the soul world, Qing Yu's pretty face was a little dazed after hearing this, but she was still very calm. She had many ideas, but she did not think of this situation. She thought that since it involved the land of exile and so many lives in it, the distorted race would definitely do something terrible. She did not expect that they would only use it to suppress and seal the original seeds. Yin Nuashing was stunned after hearing this. It was indeed a good solution, but the problem was, if they were to cause a ruckus, it would be a real war. And not to mention whether they would be seen through or caught on the spot, these 8 people would be a disaster if they were released. They were mobile disaster generators, and the disasters they caused would definitely not be limited to this world. They had to seize this great opportunity. Releasing them would be the moment the war started, for both sides. After explaining the situation to everyone, Huey's excited face calmed down a little. He was silent for a while, and young Master Shin spoke first. "We have been preparing according to the battle situation. If the war starts immediately, it will not affect us. We have been waiting for this day for too long. As for us," we frowned on the left and raised the right eyebrow high. "We only have about 100 people. Phone, although you said that you can handle it, I am a little nervous." "What's there to be nervous about? Just ask everyone." Yin Nuashing spread out her hands and sent a soul message to I Ching and the others. "Buddies, you're all the best of the best. You are the expedition to this distorted world with us. Although there are only about 100 of you, just like how you trust us, we also trust each other with our lives. Now, the time has come. Who wants to have a good fight with us?" "Master Phone." "I." "Fight, fight, fight, fight. Kill, 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 kill. Make them turn the world upside down. Break through the void, break through the void." Young Master Shun and I Ching felt dizzy from the earth-shaking voice that came from their souls. I Ching's opening words were mercilessly crushed. It turned out that in order to make one's own voice, all one needed to do was to use the simplest way to express one's meaning and shout it out. What is our slogan? Make trouble, make trouble, make trouble. Beat him to death. Beat him up. Although something strange seemed to have mixed in at the end. Anyway, the cries were quite intense. That was enough. The morale was greatly boosted. At the beginning, everyone was prepared. With more than 100 people under the leadership of the 2 lords, they would attack the entire distorted race. Now, they were just responding to the call to start the battle. Hui rubbed his head that was shaken to the point that he did not know whether it was ringing in his ears or his brain. Seeing Yin Nuashing throwing a provocative look at him, he could not help but smile bitterly. Well, let's fight. I've been tolerating these bastards for decades. Come on. Let's have a good fight." "Okay, Yin Nuashing nodded and looked down at the 8 energy giants that were in a state of deep sleep. Now, make a delayed energy explosion to wake them up and add some ingredients. Yin Nuashing jumped down alone. Hui and the others saw him circling around the head of a giant, reaching out his hand and tapping a few times. Then, with a burst of energy, he changed to the next target. After dealing with several giants, he continued to go deep into the sea of energy. With a relatively large energy fluctuation, his figure returned after a while. We asked, done. It's nothing. After a quarter of an hour, they will be shaken awake by the energy ring I set up. The weak origin energy will cause the dark energy left behind by the demon's shadow to completely riot. I also added a small gift. I guarantee that the heavenly god of the beginning will be pulled into the abyss of complete madness by me in this state. He won't even recognize his own mother. Yin Nuashing nodded. Their awakening will be accompanied by the destruction of the energy core here. All the energy that has lost control and balance will enter a condensed and explosive state under the induction of small energy. The energy of the explosion in an instant will probably crush this planet. Young Master Shun quickly arranged for people to evacuate. We can't stay here any longer. A quarter of an hour, this. I'll go find people now. Young Master Shun was taken aback by the swift and decisive action. He hurriedly wiped his sweat and nodded. Fortunately, there were not many of them on this planet, and all of them were capable of leaving on their own. All they had to do was inform them that this place was about to explode and leave immediately. What's the small gift? Yes. Yin Nuashing was about to answer, but when he heard that it was not Huey's voice, he could not help but be stunned for a moment. It was the voice of Little Angel. It stayed in his soul world and did not plan to leave, and it was much more sensitive than the other girls. It seemed to have felt something. Yin Nuashing smiled helplessly and said to the little angel alone, "The sin of the world is just a small part. Throw it into their souls when they are confused, and it will be enough to block all their cognition and enter a state of madness that they can't wake up from. It won't be over until they vent." The little angel suddenly understood. The sin of the world was a condensation of all the negative and dark characteristics of all life in this world, such as those negative emotions. Such a small dose was indeed enough to make an unguarded heavenly god of the beginning fall into a state of madness that he could not extricate himself from. It would probably take a long time for him to stop, just like the time when he destroyed the first and second primordial realms, although his situation was more serious at that time. You two are really good at fanning the flames and fanning the flames. The perfect combination can make an entire race restless. The little angel could not help but sigh. Thank you for the compliment. Yin Nuashing grinned. The little angel said, I'm not. Forget it. Anyway, those who deserve to die, or not all died when the energy of the Moon World Lake exploded. There aren't any ordinary people left. I saw the storm from the beginning to the end. The remaining life forms are basically gods. There aren't many people left on this planet. Yin Nuashing and the others left the metal tower and gathered everyone to leave the planet. Everyone looked down at the planet below, which was mostly scorched. It's an excellent place to watch. We can also see the gorgeous fireworks in the sky. Yin Nuashing waved his hand and made the magic arrays appear one by one. They kept appearing, melting into the void and overlapping. Everyone could only see that the space behind him was like the surface of a lake in the rain. Ripples appeared in many places at the same time, quickly dissipating and quickly appearing again. I Ching walked over from the side and said, Lord Foam, we have received the group of people that young Master Sha mentioned. They're now waiting at the side. Yin Nuashing waved his hand and said, ask him to take care of them. We can't stop what we're about to do. Everyone, get ready. Qing Jun was already rubbing his hands together. At this moment, everyone was nervously waiting for the last half-minute countdown of the quarter hour. In the energy imprint left by Yin Nuashing, the energy in the metal tower was surging crazily. The space inside had become hell. High-level origin beings would have to run out in less than half a minute after rolling around inside. If they were late for even a second, they would lose a layer of skin. Then, let's use this time's fireworks as a grand opening. Just treat it as a New Year's greeting to them. The moment Yin Nuoxing's voice fell, everyone saw that the planet covered in ashes in front of them suddenly lit up with a little light. Then, the light became stronger and stronger, and the light spot also turned from a little light into a ray of light. Finally, the whole planet was rendered as brilliant as the sun. The extremely dazzling light was released and formed a huge light ball outside. With a burst of energy turbulence that would make even the starry sky tremble, a huge energy shock wave with a terrible impact of rules rushed to the entire starry sky in an instant. The shock wave visible to the naked eye flashed with a huge impact ring in an instant, and the barrier that silenced them suddenly emerged. Everyone felt the tremor in the starry sky. A huge earthquake was triggered in the starry sky. The incomparably magnificent energy flames seemed to burn the entire starry sky. It was so dazzling that Yin Nuoxing and the others found it difficult to look straight at it. Roar! 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 As the gorgeous fireworks bloomed, some things that were sleeping also woke up. The violent roar that was enough to tear the starry sky apart made the already violent energy shock wave even more violent, shattering the surrounding starry sky into pieces. That huge roar contained the indestructible power of rules, and together with the shock wave, it rushed to the end of this world in an instant. All the life in this world suddenly came back to their senses. Looking at the sky, they could only see the blue sky with white clouds or the night sky with moonlight descending. Suddenly, an unusually dazzling light burst out. Although the impact had been weakened a lot when it crossed the starry sky, it still made those living stars tremble, and countless earthquakes of varying sizes occurred. Dozens of figures hidden in the land of exile suddenly widened their eyes, and their figures appeared one after another. Their thoughts instantly crossed the starry sky and connected together, and an urgent voice exploded in everyone's mind at the same time. Why is the seal broken? Isn't there still more than 10 days until it arrives? Oh no, that energy, that chaotic energy that has stimulated the seed for countless years. Oh no, they've been released. Quickly go and support them. Inform Master Changkong. They will attack all the way to the current location of the main world. In the starry sky, Yin Nuoxing waved his hand and made their figures disappear bit by bit. The light of the energy explosion had weakened a lot, and he could use his eyes to look straight at them without being burned blind. After the incomparably gorgeous fireworks ended, he suddenly felt something, and a devilish smile instantly appeared on his calm expression. As they expected, all the people of the distorted race guarding this world were alarmed by this sudden violent movement and could no longer hide. After they arrived here in an instant and saw the end of the gorgeous energy explosion, no one could remain calm, and no one could remain indifferent. A violent roar that shook the starry sky came from the center of the energy explosion, and a huge arm spewing thunder and magma swept across the starry sky, like a pillar supporting the sky, tearing the energy shock wave and energy flames into pieces. 8 huge heads that were tens of thousands of feet long squeezed out from it, and most of their bodies were still covered by the energy shock wave. These guys have grown bigger. We couldn't help but whistle. At this moment, they were in the most brilliant place in the entire starry sky, struggling and roaring. Their huge bodies were as small as ants in the starry sky, but when they wantonly waved their huge bodies full of energy, the energy that gushed out was enough to tear the starry sky apart. These 8 might be the life that was closest to the peak of the chaotic plane in the world of order, but they were like children waving their hands casually, tearing the starry sky into pieces. The starry sky surged like waves of water, and the energy chains that wrapped around their bodies disintegrated inch by inch, and their bodies shone brightly. This terrifying scene made the hundreds of strong people of the distorted race gathered here feel their scalps tingle. Those were 8 monsters that stood at the peak of the non-order plane, and their life forms had become abnormal. They stood at the peak of the origin. Even the ordinary heavenly god of the beginning didn't dare to touch them casually. Their minds were clouded by the sins of the world and the dark energy, and they had just been woken up with a bad temper. When the 8 seeds saw their own descendants gathered in the starry sky, they didn't know whether they recognized them or were just affected by the sins of the world. But their eyes burst out with an unconcealable dark light, and furious hatred instantly occupied what little was left of their minds. A giant waved his arm, and a chain wrapped around his wrist like a galaxy, and lashed out at his own descendants, shattering the starry sky and the void along the way. Such a violent scene made the people of the distorted race feel cold all over, and they quickly condensed an energy barrier. Facing the top power of their own, who knows how many generations of top power, the barrier that they hurriedly put up was like a piece of paper, and it shattered completely without even a sound when the chain lashed out. Even hundreds of people behind them were whipped and scattered like a swarm of bees. A dozen people who couldn't dodge in time had turned into a grand energy light rain, walking hand in hand to the road of reincarnation. What a heavy blow of fatherly love. It really makes those who see it sad and those who hear it cry. Hui Bian applauded in a low voice. Everyone felt that what he said was actually not wrong. After all, these 8 seeds were left behind in the beginning, and it took a long time for this race to reappear. It was actually not wrong to say that he was the father of everyone in this race, but there was no need to be picky about the details. Lord Foam, should we kill our way over? Monarch Green had been rubbing his hands for a while, and now that he saw such an intense scene, he couldn't help but want to kill his way over. No hurry, no hurry. They can handle it. We just need to watch the show. It's not time yet. Yin Nuashing shook his head, and he tilted his head to look at other places, sensing and looking forward to some movement from afar. The 8 seeds from the beginning were definitely not so easy to deal with. First of all, they were at the peak of the origin, and secondly, they had been transformed into this appearance that was neither human nor ghost by the dark energy, and they were also blinded by the sins of the world. When they fought, there was no such thing as juniors, and those 100 or so, there were less than 60 people left, and they fled in a sorry state. He was waiting for a door. I Ching saw that he closed his eyes and didn't ask any more questions. He was just about to watch a good show when his eyes suddenly flashed. Lord Foam, I've observed the formation of a large transmission door. Yin Nuashing smiled evilly again. Hold the door for me. That's a passage to their other world. Chapter 1453. He had been guarding the first city of the Order Void for hundreds of years, and it had been a few decades since the timeline resonance. He was one of the few who knew what the Guardian of the Celestial Realm wanted to do. He was one of the few who voted against the Guardian of the Celestial Realm. Although there was resentment from being offended by the Guardian of the Celestial Realm, more importantly, he felt that once the timeline resonance was successful, the Order Void would fall into chaos. Just like now, chaos had already appeared outside the first city of the Order Void. He heard that the chaos in the upper plane had shown signs of calming down, but there were still big and small battles happening. There seemed to be something happening there, but it seemed to revolve around the realm of the gods, so he was not sure. He was only managing his own forces in the first city of the Void, managing the forces of his own world. Although he was disgusted by the current chaos, he did use this to strengthen his own forces. Although he might not be able to fight against a colossus like the realm of the gods, he should be ranked among the top in the Void. Today, he walked out of the tower of the first city of the Void, as usual. He walked around the city to inspect the situation, then returned to the top of the tower to look at the abyssal death mist blockade not far away in the Void. He listened to the information from his subordinates about their own world, then contacted the other cities in the Void defense line to inquire about the situation. Finally, he looked at the chaotic situation in the Void and sent a sincere blessing to the culprit who caused the timeline resonance. He then continued to look at the abyssal death mist blockade from the top of the tower. This cycle of mission had been carried out for hundreds of years, and the last battle with the abyssal death mist blockade seemed to have happened a long time ago. Lord Yin Nua, there are guests visiting the first city of the Void. On the high platform, Yin Nua turned his head and looked at the soldier who came up to him respectfully. He frowned in confusion. Guests? What guests? Where are they? It is said that they are from a remote world in the upper plane. They are interested in joining the Void defense line to fight against the abyssal death mist with us. They are now waiting in the hall of the first tower. The soldier said respectfully. Yin felt a little strange. Guests visiting the first city of the Void, and with such a formal announcement? And he even said that he wanted to join them? It sounded weird, as if they were all human compatriots, but a human life form suddenly stood up and declared, I will fight for the human race, dragging along his family, and even informing the higher-ups of the human race. At first glance, it did not feel right either way. After all, at such a time, whether it was a civil war or an alliance against an external force, there was no need to inform the higher-ups. They could fight however they liked, and if they could not kill the abyss and death mist, they were all Empyrean gods and could not possibly need someone to enlighten them step by step. At present, although the Void First City had changed a little and those two irritating fellows had been driven away, it was still a world of order, and there was no need to inform the higher-ups. Damn it, everyone knew that you were a life form of order. Yin didn't pay much attention to it. After pondering for a while, he nodded casually. Have you informed the others? The soldier smiled helplessly. My lord, it's just another faction joining in. There's no need to mobilize so many people. I'm just here to inform the higher-ups. Yin pursed his lips. Even his subordinates thought that there was nothing much to say, and the others probably thought so too, so no one would care. However, since the other party had made such a formal announcement, they, as the defenders of the first city of the Void, should go and meet the guests. Besides, they had nothing to do at the moment. In the hall at the bottom of the tower, Yin pushed open the door and entered. The man in the hall turned around and smiled at him. Hello, commander of the first city of the Void. Yin and the soldier who had just followed him into the hall. The latter casually closed the door while the former walked forward, sizing up the young man in front of him. He was dressed in red robes and a black cloak. There seemed to be a large object propping up the black cloak on his shoulders, elbows, and other parts of his body. It seemed to be some kind of light armor. There was a faint smile on his delicate face, and he looked completely harmless. However, from his scarlet eyes, one could see that there was something hidden in the depths of his eyes, something out of place. I'm Yin the divine guardian of the first city. May I know your name? Yin casually sat down opposite the man and asked. My name is Chongning. The man chuckled. He looked at the empty hall and said, It seems that the first city doesn't welcome me. They're just too lazy to move. Yin said casually. To the first city of the Void, there are many forces like you who came from the inner circle to join the battle. The first city of the Void. No, the Void battlefront does not have many restrictions on the forces of order who come to assist in the battle. Everyone only has one thing in mind. As long as you're standing in this city, you're fighting for the sake of order. This is also why you see, he waved his hand across the hall. Everyone is used to this kind of thing, so no one came. I just came to take a look out of curiosity. I see. Chongning nodded in realization. When he saw Yin staring at him, he said unhurriedly, This time, I've brought my own world to assist in the Void battlefront. They're spread out evenly across many places on the battlefront. As for me, I naturally have to come to the first city. Since it's a rather large movement, I wanted to report it to you in advance. Yin raised a finger. Do you need any special help? Seeing that you've specially informed me, do you need any special arrangements? I do need a little help from you seniors. However, I haven't thought of how to bring it up yet. Allow me to think about it, Chongning said with a smile. Then make the preparations before tonight. After nightfall in the first city, my old friends will come out for some activities. By then, you can boldly state your request. As long as it's not too much, we'll help you as long as we're all from the same world of order. Yin said as he stood up and walked out of the hall. Then I'll thank you seniors in advance. Outside the tower, in a luxurious palace attic on the top floor, a man and a woman were sitting cross-legged facing each other. They suddenly opened their eyes and looked at each other with strange expressions. Chongning, report? A new force that just joined? This guy is a little. Should I say inconceivable or suspicious? The woman shook her head. This has never happened since the first city of the void appeared. Also, that guy's smile is very fake. I don't like it. Look, Sho. The man suddenly covered her mouth. His soul in the void observed the situation in the hall. After Yin Nuo left, Chongning casually walked out of the tower and strolled around the city. After 10 minutes, he finally spoke. Normally, the forces of order that just arrived in the first city of the void would immediately understand the situation here and find an area for their subordinates. Why is this guy strolling around the streets like a wandering ghost? The woman pushed his hand away and spoke in his soul. Be careful. Don't focus on him. Don't focus on his area. He's also a pinnacle origin. If you stare at him for more than 7 seconds, he'll easily notice us. We're not as powerful as Lord Feng after all. Be careful. The man smirked. Let's just cover the first city. Divert your soul's attention so that he won't be able to sense us. What is it? There's some weak power fused into the void? What is that? The man was startled as soon as he diverted his attention to the entire city. He saw something in the void of the first city. Keep an eye on him. I'll take a look at the situation outside. The woman looked at him doubtfully and nodded. His divine soul, which had fused with the void, peeled away the hidden things bit by bit, opening up the void layer by layer. The man focused his attention on the deeper layers of the void. Finally, a bright ball of light appeared in his line of sight, which stunned him. It was a ball of energy with a charm engraved in it. It was a charm that carried the aura of the realm of the gods. What the hell? You scared me. That's probably a talisman left behind by Lord Feng or Lord Hui. The man sighed in relief. He had really scared himself. I didn't spread my soul to that area in the past. I was only paying attention to the spire, so I didn't see this thing. It's fine, it's fine. Compared to that, what is he doing? Strolling around, buying things. Occasionally, he'll stand still and look at the abyssal death mist ceiling circle. The woman casually replied. He's using a very obscure method to leave some energy marks in every corner of the first city. I don't know what he's trying to do. He's gone out. The woman shrieked, startling the man as well. He quickly turned his attention to Chongning and saw that he had suddenly dashed out of the barrier. Both of their spirits could not keep up with him. He had rushed out of the first city and disappeared without a trace. TSK, a small area of alteration and distortion of the laws. We couldn't keep an eye on him. Did he discover us? The man frowned. The woman shook her head. If he discovered us, he would have come straight for us. He probably just doesn't want to be noticed by Yin Nuo and the others. But it's really strange. That guy, where did he go? I can't find him. There's no trace of him in any direction. Then let's just wait and see. We'll know what's going on tonight. That's right. Our teleportation circle is still bound to our souls, right? The woman showed a relaxed smile. Don't worry. Lord Feng personally prepared it for us. Even if the primeval heavenly god had sealed this place, we would still be able to teleport back to the divine realm through our connection with the laws of the divine realm and the two lords. Furthermore, even if we do fall here, our soul marks are still in the spiritual temple. We'll be revived in a few days. That's true. The man scratched his head. Aside from this, Lord Feng had also left them with many defensive measures that targeted the mind and soul. He also carefully checked them. After confirming that there were no problems, he no longer worried. The two closed their eyes and fell silent again. Night gradually fell. In fact, there was no real sun in the void that circled around the first city. It was just that the city's barrier would show day and night according to the time. As for the time used, only the person who set up the barrier would know. However, since it was only used to adjust one's mood, no one cared too much about it. Not to mention the blurry time in the void, being in a silent standoff for 1,000 years was also very boring. Even if the Order champions who were stationed here were people who had experienced tens of billions of years of loneliness, staying in the unchanging darkness of the void for a long time would also be boring. This was also the reason why the first city of the void would have some astronomical changes and why there would be some shops, and the layout of the city was no different from a normal city. The only difference was that everyone in this city could instantly take out their weapon and turn into a killing machine in a second. When night fell, Yin Nuo and a dozen other First City's heavenly gods would stand on the wall closest to the void battlefront ceiling, circle, and cast probing or meaningful gazes at the abyssal death mist ceiling circle. This would continue for 4 hours, not just for surveillance, but also for in-depth exploration. The abyssal death shroud's activity level has increased by 0.1%. Should we inform the various places? It's probably just a small disturbance. In the past, we've observed that its activity level is sometimes high and sometimes low. It hasn't exceeded the highest level, so we don't have to pay attention to it for now. However, just in case, let's have all the observers be alert. An ear-piercing energy alarm suddenly reverberated throughout the entire city. Amidst the deafening alarm, dozens of gigantic energy beams suddenly soared into the sky from the void First City. The people who had been hiding in their shops and pavilions just a moment ago soared into the sky wearing the clothes of chefs and laborers. The weapons in their hands flashed with a ferocious light. At this moment, the barrier of the First City also surged with a tremendous amount of energy. Energy that even the Empyrean god of origin could not shake leaped across the barrier and illuminated the void. The abyssal death shroud has invaded? Yin Nuo and the other's expressions suddenly became serious. He first glanced at the defensive perimeter of the void's defensive perimeter and was stunned when he found that it was still intact. The defensive perimeter is still fine. This alarm, before he could finish, the ear-piercing energy buzzing instantly faded away. The First City of the void and the defensive perimeter of the void's defensive perimeter did not encounter any subsequent destructive attacks. There was no ambush. The alarm just now seemed to be a false alarm. Yin Nuo rolled his eyes. What kind of false alarm was this? How could a group of heavenly origin gods experience a false alarm at the same time? Go and investigate the alarm just now. Something must have triggered the alarm. There's no way it would be a false alarm. The soldier behind him nodded and disappeared from the city wall. The atmosphere on the city wall became a little strange because of this sudden alarm. The dozen or so Empyrean gods looked at each other. One of them could not help but ask, "Then, are we still going to observe?" Yin Nuo frowned. "Leave a few people here to watch. The rest of you go to the First City and find out what caused the alarm just now. See if it's a problem with the defensive perimeter or something else." One of the Empyrean gods ordered his subordinates to do something. Then he turned around and asked, "Are you worried that the abyssal death mist spawn will come in? After the alarm just now, we didn't discover any signs of attack or even any intentions of attack. Perhaps something unexpected has happened. We still haven't figured out who the enemy is, right?" Yin Nuo glanced at him and said nonchalantly. Everyone shrugged their shoulders. On the surface, they didn't seem to care much about it. However, they had already arranged everything beforehand. Guarding the most dangerous place in the world of order, they had to be vigilant against anything that was possible or impossible. Even if it was really impossible, they had to treat it as something that could happen. After all, this was the kind of enemy that could distort the rules and destroy the order. There was nothing normal about it. Senior Yin Nuo. On the city wall, the group of heavenly gods who were about to disperse suddenly stopped in their tracks. They saw Chong Ning, who was dressed in a red robe and a black cloak, appear on the city wall. He cupped his hands at them and smiled. "You must be the other seniors of the First City. My name is Chong Ning." "Oh, Yin Nuo. Is this the new guy you mentioned today? He's also peak reciprocity. Not bad, not bad." Yin Nuo waved his hand to indicate that Chong Ning did not need to be nervous. "Looks like you're ready. Tell us what you think." "Of course. But before that, I have something I want to show you all." Chong Ning nodded with a smile. He fished out a fist-sized orb from his bosom. It seemed like an ordinary gray orb, but there seemed to be energy surging within. There were indeed traces of energy flickering on its surface. The closest Empyrean god accepted the orb and could not help but ask after a few glances, "What's this?" "I'm not sure either. I obtained it by accident in an extremely remote place in the space of order. It would occasionally reflect some strange images and flicker with energy. I feel like there's some sort of secret hidden within, but I'm not good enough to tell. Chongning shook his head helplessly. The Empyrean gods stared at the orb and used their own methods to try and understand and touch it. However, nothing happened, so they passed it to the others one by one. When it was past Yin Nuo, he glanced at it. Just when he was about to use his own method to try and understand it, the voices of a man and a woman exploded in his head. Throw it away. That's a high-density crystal of the abyssal death mist. Shock flashed through Yin Nuo's eyes. He suddenly raised his hand and threw the orb out of the barrier. However, Chongning suddenly chuckled. Senior's reaction is not bad, but it's too late. The gray orb that had just passed through the barrier of the Void First City suddenly released a resplendent light. In the next second, that resplendent light was covered by the light of darkness. It exploded with an energy that was enough to destroy the order of the Void. Black clouds and mist swept out from the place where the energy exploded. Red energy lines spread out wildly and engulfed the entire Void First City in an instant. This time, the buzzing energy alarm rang throughout the entire city. This time, it was a real disaster. The people who had not returned to their original positions in time turned around abruptly and unleashed their own power. For a moment, the entire Void First City ignited with an unusually bright energy radiance. The power of order gushed out wildly and supported the Void First City's defensive barrier. On the city walls, Yin Nuo and the other defenders surrounded Chongning. The presence of over a dozen peak reciprocity cultivators made the space tremble. A layer of transparent green light appeared on Yin Nuo and the others. Because they had touched the crystal of the abyssal death mist, they were worried that they would be twisted into a manifestation of the abyssal death mist. They all used their own methods to protect their souls and minds. One of the defenders said angrily, "Who are you? What are you trying to do by releasing the abyssal death mist? Don't waste your breath on him. Capture him and interrogate him." The other person bellowed and appeared in front of Chongning in an instant. He stretched out his hand, but before he could touch Chongning, his body suddenly turned gray and froze in midair. In an instant, a scarlet energy exploded from his body, and his body was sent flying as if he had been struck by a heavy blow. He then disappeared from the other side of the first city in an instant. Aya, this senior sure is impatient. Chongning clapped his hands casually. The banquet has only just begun. The night is still very long, so there's no need to be in such a hurry. Yin Nuo and the others all paled. They looked in the direction that the person had disappeared in and found the person who had collapsed in the ruins of the city. A few scarlet and black energy patterns constantly climbed up his body as if they wanted to envelop him. "Who are you?" Chongning smiled. Just when he was about to say something, he suddenly looked away. "Yep, it's time." Suddenly, 1,000 feet tall, scarlet radiance rained down on every corner of the first city in the void. Along with a violent surge of energy, the light pillars turned into gigantic portals. One by one, silhouettes containing tremendous energy stepped out of the portals. A 10,000-mile-wide fissure suddenly opened up in midair. Then, a group of silhouettes wrapped in black mist and surging with scarlet energy gushed out of the fissure like insects. In just a few dozen seconds, almost 100,000 silhouettes rushed into the first city and began to battle with all order champions in the city. Yin Nuo saw the terrifying battles that suddenly broke out in various parts of the first city. His eyes narrowed slightly as he stared at the person in front of him. He saw Chongning slowly spread his arms. The harmless smile on his face grew wider. Behind him, 6 scarlet divine rings and an unusually dim black divine ring gradually appeared. They were so shocked that their hearts trembled. "Senior Yin Nuo, let me introduce myself again. My name is Chong Sky. It's my honor to announce to you that the first city of the void is now ours." Chapter 1454. The dim background of the starry sky was a faint red. There were no twinkling stars, nor were there any bright nebulae or star clusters in the deep space. There was only an unusually bright light in the entire starry sky. It was a phenomenon where all the objects in the entire starry sky were gathered in one area. All the stars were gathered in a huge area, emitting a light that was enough to illuminate the starry sky. The whole starry sky was gathered in one place, and the other empty space was only a faint floating distorted energy. It was like an egg. The distorted energy was the egg white, and the egg yolk was everything in the starry sky. Suddenly, a crack that was hundreds of feet wide appeared in the starry sky. A few figures fell out of it. The burst of energy instantly cleared the faint red color in the space. Swords and sabers were pointed at every space. Oh, what a thick, distorted energy. We almost fainted when he came in. It's all over the starry sky. Everything in this starry sky is gathered in one area. The other places are full of distorted energy. Yin Nuashing looked around. The starry sky was full of energy, just like the energy storage worlds. However, the concentration of the distorted energy was not so high. After all, there were still living beings here. If the distorted energy was too high and filled the entire starry sky, even they would not be able to stand it. For the same reason, he would not be comfortable if he was soaked in a place full of the elements of extinction. Young Master Shun looked around the world. Looking at the only huge cluster of starlight, he immediately recognized the situation of the world. This is a world similar to a frontier fortress. It guards the surrounding void. There is a powerful energy source in the center that blocks the void transmission. If we don't get rid of the energy source, we can't go deeper through this world. Unless someone from the inside opens the door and comes here, then controls the door. He paused for a moment and looked at Yin Nuashing. But you should be able to bypass it directly. Boom! It took less than 0.001 seconds for the energy, which contained the force of a thunderbolt, to hit young Master Shun's face. Young Master Shun was forced to swallow the rest of his words. The scarlet energy storm that exploded on the spot engulfed the entire starry sky. Rings of scarlet energy shockwaves that were visible to the naked eye exploded in all directions one after another, shattering the starry sky. Go! Don't give them a chance to catch their breath. Hundreds of figures appeared in the starry sky in the blink of an eye, surrounding the scarlet energy storm from hundreds of directions. Hand seals condensed one after another, and powerful moves and energies that contained the power to collapse the void smashed into the storm. Don't stop. Continue attacking. Everyone stared with their scarlet eyes. The aura on their bodies was so violent that it almost caused the energy and rules to go out of control. From the moment they came out, they had exerted their strength to the extreme. It was obvious that they valued the enemies who appeared here very much. However, it was not Yin Nuashing and the others. They were only wary of the first few seeds. The bursts of energy were like dazzling energy fireworks blooming in the starry sky. The energy from this world was also constantly slanting and collapsing toward this place. It was as if this place was a black hole, a pouring point. After a long period of indiscriminate bombardment, they did not see any counterattack. This made them a little stunned. They could not help but slow down the frequency of their attacks. They recalled the scene from the beginning of the attack. Suddenly, they said, "Didn't the information that came from the front say that the first few seeds were a few energy giants? Why did I see a few normal-sized life forms just now?" The leader frowned. In just a moment, he threw away any thoughts and continued to bombard indiscriminately. "Don't worry so much. Just fight. Those are curse-bearers that have been imprisoned for countless years. They're no longer people that any of us know." Boom! When a huge energy burst out from behind them, everyone was stunned. Dozens of people who were close to them were swept into the dark red energy storm and disappeared in an instant. The leader suddenly felt that something was wrong. Enemy attack. Let everyone behind us. The moment this violent roar exploded in the starry sky, a dazzling radiance as bright as the sun suddenly burst out from the dark red energy storm, blocking all the energy fluctuations that were about to spread out. Then, several figures rushed out in all directions. When the light of order solidified this space, he raised his sword and tore apart every enemy that approached him. Then, with a loud bang, he detonated all the energy in their bodies and released a second firework in this starry sky. The leader knew that they were done for. With a furious roar, he shattered the seal of the light of order. Using the fastest speed he could achieve in his life, he smashed the thumb ring on his hand. A surge of energy shot out at an infinite speed. Then, he crashed into the edge of the light of order. That scene caused his eyes to bulge out. His eyes were filled with despair. When he was in despair, a purplish-black light fell from above and divided his whole body into two. All the energy in his body was released into the void in an instant. Not even a ray of light burst out and disappeared. Compared to the dazzling funeral fireworks, next to him, his death was sullen and unostentatious. 1.7 seconds. It's a little slow. After all, there are hundreds of people. Hui swung the divine greatsword in his hand and shrugged. They were mentally prepared to encounter all kinds of scenes, but they never thought that the moment they came in, they would be bombarded without reason. Looking at the momentum, if they were a little weaker and caught off guard, the energy bombardment would have burned them into a dragon, and their ashes would have been scattered. How could they explain this to others? The first seed is a layer of haze in everyone's heart. They are incurable, but they are very powerful and difficult to purify. So when they know that they are released, the whole race will probably fall into an abnormal state of anxiety. Young Master Shun shook his hand and suddenly frowned. It should be so, but why is the defense force of this world so weak? And they're just some mid-level and not very high-level origins. Although they're the mainstays and the top forces, but it still feels. We also felt that something was strange, but he could not put his finger on it. Yin Nuoxing decided to ask I Ching and the others about the situation on the other side. The 8 first seeds were still fighting in the starry sky. Dozens of huge rifts had opened up in the starry sky. The powerhouses of the distorted race were constantly appearing, and the chaotic tide that they created was one level lower than the tide of darkness. The chaotic tide? Are you sure it's the chaotic tide? Yin Nuoxing cocked her head after listening to I Ching. I Ching nodded affirmatively. Hundreds of millions of chaotic minions are thrown here every minute. However, they will be wiped out in an instant. The distorted race's Empyrean gods of origin have also suffered hundreds of casualties. Something's not right. Something's not right. Yin Nuoxing frowned. What was the use of the chaotic tide against the 8 seeds? The energy flowing around the 8 big guys could kill a lot of them. The chaotic minions had no defense at all. How many worlds does your race have? Yin Nuoxing asked young Master Shun. When I left, there were only a dozen worlds. Well, I don't know if they have expanded in the past few years. I think there should not be many. My race has to spend a lot of effort to deal with just one world, so there may be 1 or 2 more worlds. However, there will not be more than 30 worlds at most, young Master Shin said while thinking. Yin Nuoxing thought for a moment. She looked at the only huge light in the starry sky and said, "Change of plan. We will cause a ruckus here and blow up this world. Then we will return to the previous world." Blow it up now? We asked. Yin Nuoxing shook her head and raised her chin towards the distance. Let's go there and take a look. This was a frontier world. Without destroying the void interference source in the middle, there was no way to go inside from this world. However, even if they destroyed it, they would not be able to go in without the coordinates. It would not be easy to lure the enemy into this world. Besides, this was a frontier fortress. There should not be so few people. As they plunged into the brightest ball of light, their vision became much clearer. The stars in the sky appeared in their eyes, and the stars with life were inconspicuous among these huge star clusters. However, even though there were so many stars here, everyone still felt an inexplicable sense of emptiness in their hearts. Moreover, the movements of these stars were different from the stars they were familiar with. It seemed that the rules that created them were on another side. Even though they were surrounded by stars, Yin Nuo and the others still felt that the starry sky was a little cold. He quickly scanned the area with his spirit and sensed that there were a few planets with life that were gathered together. There were life auras on them, The remaining life auras did not mean that there were still people living there at this moment. It meant that there had once been life there. The people from Yun Nuo planet looked at each other and quickly rushed over. In this huge light, through the connection between the stars and the empty starry sky, there were some defensive measures set up in this huge light. Some were similar to arrays and runes that were filled with energy. Judging from these defensive measures, this should indeed be a kind of guarding and defensive world. Then, this place was empty. Another empty world. That damned Zhang Kong won't suddenly jump out and scare us, right? Hui suddenly shuddered and said with a black line on his face. He remembered what happened in that world last time. It was as empty and as silent as before. Then, the sky exploded that world with a bang, and they were blown to this side. Yin Nuoshing. In fact, there were people just now, but they were all wiped out. Oh, Hui said, that's true. Soon, they arrived at one of the planets that didn't revolve. The orbit here made them dizzy, or rather, there was no orbit to speak of. They could move however they wanted. There were some buildings on these planets that once had life. They were filled with all kinds of runes, demonic runes and divine runes. Yin Nuoshing and the others just stood in the starry sky and looked down. They had no intention of going down to have a look. They did not have the time or the time to do so. Say, they have such a strong defense. Why do they rush out to attack us? Hui doubtfully pointed at those defensive measures that looked powerful but were actually only SOSO. However, they could still resist for a long time. He then pointed at them and said, can't they just obediently stay behind the defense and wait for us to attack the city? Young Master Shun shook his head. These are the defensive measures that my people left behind. They are not effective against the first 8 seeds. Maybe the things they stole from the realm of the gods would be effective. But obviously, they don't have too many of those things. This can be seen from the fact that the defense at the border has not been updated. Oh, I understand. They thought that those seeds had found their way here, so they came out to meet them. After all, those things can't defend against them, and it may be too late to respond when they come to the door. Hui said with an O. His god's soul scanned the area again. Yin Nuoshing even borrowed Feng Qinghuang's power. The Phoenix's special talent made her very sensitive to the aura of life. But even so, he did not find any life. There's really no one left. The riot just now was their final counterattack. But judging from the layout of this border fortress, there should be at least a dozen times more people guarding here than those 200 to 300 people just now. How could it be empty now? Hui curled his lips in puzzlement. His eyes suddenly paused as he glanced at the few life stars below, and the smile on his face suddenly became a little evil. Yin Nuo was still thinking when he suddenly heard the sound of energy gathering with the power of the rules coming from below. Hui was holding a huge mass of dense divine energy in his right hand, and in the next second, it left his hand and turned into a ray of golden light that rushed down to the planet with life below. In an instant, there was an explosion of energy on the planet that made the stars tremble. The few balls next to it were shaken out of their original positions and were shattered by the violent force. A guardian with more action than thinking had once again smashed someone else's planet. Yin Nuoshing and the others were stunned. Hui scratched his head and laughed dryly. Well, I was just checking if there was anything. Ouch! Yin Nuoshing hit Hui on the head and rolled her eyes. But after the commotion, she said, it seems that there is really nothing left here. Let's go. Destroy this world and go somewhere else. Destroy it directly? Destroy it directly. After confirming that there was nothing left in this world, Yin Nuoshing and the others returned to the side of the spatial rift that they had just teleported from. Each of them left a mass of concentrated energy for Yin Nuoshing and left first. Yin Nuoshing played with a few masses of energy for a while and triggered the distorted energy in this world. With just a little energy, he catalyzed the energy in his hand, and in this world to the extent of turning the world upside down. He had to thank them for filling the entire starry sky with energy. If it were not for such a dense mass of energy, he would not have been able to borrow the power of the distorted race. Boom! The energy detonated in the center of this world with sound and waves spread to the end of the world at an infinite speed. Yin Nuoxing saw the energy flame erupting and expanding, constantly swallowing space, time, and the void. She grinned, turned, and went into the portal and closed the door. Huge energy storms were still erupting in this world. Waves of energy waves swept across the entire starry sky. If Yin Nuoxing had not used the void barrier to limit the range, the energy shockwaves alone would have sunk the dozens of exile lands. Whoosh! Boom! As soon as Yin Nuoxing came out of the portal, he heard a violent whistling sound. To be able to make such a sound in the starry sky, it must have the power of destruction. As soon as he looked up, he saw a big man swinging his arms. The energy chain in his hand was like a long galaxy whip in the starry sky. The huge size, the energy contained, and the destructive power made the hundreds of contenders in the battle feel their scalps tingle. It was not only their scalps that were tingling. Yin Nuoxing and the others could not help but shrink their heads when they saw it, although the long galaxy whip really could not touch them. He stood in place and observed the battle for a while. The 8 strong men and their great-great-great-great-grandchildren were fighting back and forth. The latter were obviously at a disadvantage. If it weren't for the former's brains being fried, the battle would have been over by now. Staring at a portal that not many people had come out of and was about to close, Yin Nuoxing suddenly snapped his fingers. A group of figures suddenly appeared behind him and then rushed out. They violently propped up the portal he had taken a fancy to and forcibly tore it bigger. Yin Nuoxing waved his hand and said, "Let's go. Let's continue. They can fight, but we'll tear down their house." "Fight!" A roar came from behind, and Yin Nuoxing instantly knew who was taking the lead at this time. But just by looking at the way they tore the portal, he probably knew who had come. Yin Nuoxing whispered to I Ching in his soul and asked him to watch the battle here. Then, Yin Nuoxing led a group of people and rushed into the portal with Qing Jun and the others who had just come over. However, just as they were prepared to be showered with energy from the beginning when they rushed into every world, the contenders were also prepared to use energy to push them into the reincarnation road once anything broke into this world at this time. The two sides cooperated with each other tacitly. So when the latter saw that the portal that had not yet closed was suddenly torn open by a brute force, everyone held their breath and waited for a large mass of light and shadow to suddenly emerge. Everyone, attack with all your strength. Don't show any mercy. It took less than half a second to rush from the edge of the starry sky to the portal. Thousands of energy collided with each other, but it was not over yet. 2 people frantically took out 2 galaxies made of distorted energy, pinched them into the size of a discus with their hands, and then threw them over with a bombardment of thousands of energy. Boom, boom, bang. A lot of inexplicable energy explosions with the power of destruction spread throughout the starry sky in an instant. Not to mention the void, even the nothingness was sunk. Damn, that bastard is bombarding us with this kind of suicidal attack again. We had already taken out the guardian shield when he entered the portal. At this time, thousands of heavenly gods of origin and the energy of a world were focusing fire on it. It suddenly wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf, and a violent shock spread in the space they were in. Let's take advantage of Huey's defense and kill our way out. Green, you take people to attack from the sides, and I'll break through from the front. Yin Nuoxing took out the Netherworld Ruin Sword, and magic arrays appeared around her. Then, they all shrank and merged into the Netherworld Ruin Sword. Her figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. Green and the others also roared and rushed out together. After rushing out of the portal that was bombarded indiscriminately, Yin Nuoxing looked back at the space behind her. Her cheeks could not help but twitch. Who taught the distorted people? This kind of attack, this kind of indiscriminate bombardment, was like smashing an entire primordial realm on the enemy's head. She suddenly thought about it, then coughed dryly and decided not to think about it anymore. This was a bit similar to her fighting style, whipping corpses and burning them to ashes. The members of the distorted race were all tensed up. They were only focused on attacking, and they didn't put much effort into defense. Just an ordinary energy barrier in front of them was gone. To them, there was no difference whether they had a defense or not. After all, they were up against 8 primogenitors. With a wave of their hands, their defenses would be destroyed. It was better to just attack directly. Yin Yaxing turned into a shadow and rushed in from the front. The netherworld ruin sword in her hand slashed down hard, and the light from the sword illuminated half of the starry sky. The energy barrier in front of her suddenly exploded into pieces. Then, dark red energy burst out and turned into a transparent barrier that sealed this world. This is... The leader of this world sensed that something was not right. His body suddenly disappeared on the spot, and he shouted at the top of his lungs, using his soul to transmit the message to everyone. Something's not right. It's not them. It's... A giant purplish-black sword appeared out of thin air, piercing through his body as he disappeared into another space. The nether void sword's energy exploded, shattering his body into pieces. Yin Yaxing casually swung the giant sword. This guy still has some reaction. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Hearing another shout, Yin Yaxing suddenly felt that the hostility in this part of the starry sky had changed rapidly. It was all directed at her. She swung her hand, grabbed the netherworld ruin sword with both hands, and stabbed it fiercely into space. A wave of dark red energy suddenly burst out, shocking the distorted people. Beat them to a pulp. Chapter 1455. Chaotic energies rumbled throughout the entire starry sky. Crimson, distorted energies and energies of order of all colors collided wantonly in this space, causing a violent chain reaction that blasted the void and space into smithereens. As the battlefield continued to expand, the energy reaction became more and more sparse. The eruption of energy became smaller and smaller. The weakening of the eruption of energy and the withering sparks indicated that the battle was about to come to an end. In the background of the dark and cold starry sky, a disintegrated starry sky was constantly throwing out a large number of fragments in the turbulence of energy. Its scarlet core was exposed in the starry sky, like a huge, squinting eye. Around it, there were occasionally violent energy flames flashing. That was already the last movement of the battle in this starry sky. Yin Noashing stood on the broken planet, holding a body with a dead soul in his right hand. He looked at it for a while, and the origin energy and the elements of nirvana gushed out from his hand, wrapping it all up. He forced the distorted energy in the body to a corner and condensed it into a core. The body also melted into the core, like snow melting. After a while, only a scarlet energy, ball the size of a thumb, was left in his hand. Lord Feng, Jing Yuanji, descended from the starry sky. The battle will be completely over in 5 minutes, and this world will be treated as a huge energy source according to your request. It is ready to be exiled into the void and annihilated. Oh, Yin Nuashing nodded and responded. He lifted the energy crystal in his hand and looked at the scarlet ball thoughtfully against the few remaining starlight in the starry sky. Jing Yuanji looked at him and then looked at the crystal ball in his hand. She could not help but ask, Lord Feng, what is that? An energy crystal formed by a high-grade origin of the Distortion clan, without the power of the soul. Yin Nuashing said casually. After a while, when Jing Yuanji was deep in thought, he stuffed it into his mouth, scaring the latter. Lord Feng, it's okay. This little power of distortion has no effect on me at all. Yin Nuashing waved his hand, and the energy crystal that fell in his body turned into a huge amount of distorted energy and dispersed. A scarlet light flashed in his eyes, and then a silver-white energy wrapped the former. Seeing that he was fine for a while, Jing Yuanji breathed a sigh of relief. She was a little puzzled. It's good that you were fine, but why do you want to eat it? I want to know more about it. Yin Nuashing raised her head and looked at the vast starry sky. We've been looking for them for some time now. We've listed them as an enemy, a parasite in the world of order. But in the end, we don't know much about them. On the other hand, they know a lot about us. From the battle just now, you should have noticed it, right? Jing Yuanji's expression was complicated, and her eyebrows were slightly furrowed. This was a problem that could not be avoided. Yes, they understand our way of fighting and understand our energy. The reason why we can fight so easily is actually because of the difference in rules in order to suppress and crush them. If we really fight on equal terms, we may be at a disadvantage for a period of time. They understand us. No, you're wrong about one thing. Jing Yuanji was stunned. Yin Nuoxing turned her head and chuckled at her. They know about the realm of the gods through various means. Their understanding of the realm of the gods is no less than ours. I even suspect that they have lived in the realm of the gods for a period of time. Lord Feng, Lord Feng. Qing Jun jumped down from the starry sky, alive and kicking. His youthful face was now several years younger. He was in high spirits, as if he had released the pressure of tens of thousands of years. Yin Nuoxing and Jing Yuanji were both stunned. Didn't this guy just not fight for a few days? Why did he accumulate so much pressure? It was rare for Qing Jun to be so silly for a while. When he saw the strange expressions on the two people's faces, he coughed dryly and sorted out his expression. Ahem, the battle is basically over. We have roughly explored this starry sky and found nothing noteworthy. Young Master Shun said that this is also a place similar to the border defense. If there is something here, it won't be placed here. Yin Nuoxing nodded, not surprised. Right now, we only need to focus on the battle. I have also looked around. There is really nothing noteworthy here. Clean up. Those who are injured, hurry up and heal. Those who are weak, hurry up and recover. The battle has just begun. Well, there is no injury. The self-detonation of those guys who are forced to a dead end is useless to us. When Yin Nuoxing heard this, he suddenly thought of the huge movements that he had just seen, which seemed to be the creation of the world. His cheeks could not help but twitch. A dignified, high-level, heavenly god of origin was forced to self-detonate. He really wanted to ask Qing Jun, what did you guys do to him? Sneak attack, corner him, press him to the ground, and beat him up. Let him fight a group of us alone. Use the divine right to take turns to suppress him, cripple his energy sensing, and openly stun him. And Qing Jun counted with his fingers one by one, and the sinister smile on his face became more and more out of control. Yin Nuoxing and Jing Yuanji agreed that the other party was played to death by them, but these dozens of people could still play with thousands of people. Should they say that they were thick-skinned, or... After thinking for a while, Yin Nuoxing was too lazy to say anything. He sighed. Forget it. Just be careful not to get yourself into trouble. But then again, there are very few people in this world. Young Master Shun and Hui landed together. The former could not help but say, "This world should be a pass." It took me a lot of effort to rush out of here. I didn't expect that when I came back this time. Hui could not help but frown. Is it a mismatch in numbers again? What's going on? It's not just the numbers. There's also a great artifact that they haven't used. I just want to take a look. It's not even in this world, young Master Shin said. And until now, we haven't seen their great executor appear. Jing Yuanji said, even if there's a problem with the transmission of information, they should be here by now. Yin Nuoxing and the others were silent for a while. They looked at each other and could not figure out the problem in a short while. However, they instinctively had a bad feeling in their hearts. Long Sky was either doing something deep in the main world, or they were not here. It doesn't matter. They'll naturally come out later. Yin Nuoxing waved his hand, intending to skip over this problem. If they don't come out, we'll fight until they come out. Moreover, only a part of the forces we're dealing with now are elites. Based on some analysis, the number of their top combatants should be about the same as ours. However, their total combat power is weaker than ours. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to fight so easily. Indeed, Hui nodded with his arms crossed. It's so easy to fight in a way battle. I've never encountered such a situation. In the past, when I led a team to eliminate some dangerous races in the void, Which one of them didn't resist more and more crazily? In their home field, they can even suppress our theocracy domain. Let's not talk about it for now. Let's go to the next world. Yin Nuoxing waved his hand. After making the final preparations in this world and confirming that they had rested, they returned to the starry sky through the portal just now. At the same time, they threw a torch into the void and burned this world to ashes. When they passed through the portal, everyone subconsciously opened up their energy barriers. Hui Ding was at the front, and then they were all stunned. The entire starry sky was quiet, and there was no movement at all. The portals and the huge cracks in the sky had also disappeared. Lord Feng, you're here. But fortunately, they left some people here, so they did not have to worry about the situation being out of their control. At this time, I Ching ran over. The 8 seeds tore open a crack and ran to another world. We're not sure if we should chase after them, so we let some people follow them. We're here to guard the gate. Now, all the attention of the distorted race is attracted by the 8 seeds. I Ching was the first to teleport to a place to signal, and Yin Nuoxing and the others followed. They raised their heads and looked ahead. In front of them was an incomparably huge spatial rift, so huge that it could swallow the entire Milky Way. A large amount of chaotic energy aura remained at the edge of the rift, and it was still constantly devouring the stars, and its presence had slowed down the recovery of space and void by a lot. If it was left here, the stars would be devoured sooner or later. Yin Nuoxing and I Ching nodded and let the latter and the rest go first. Then, he looked for Qing Yu in her soul. What's your plan? The matter of the land of exile has been solved by accident. The next period of time will be a period of war. I don't know how long it will take. Do you plan to go back, or? Qing Yu was chatting with Dao Heaven and the little angel. When they heard this, they all fell silent. Dao Heaven was silent for a while, and his expression became a little strange. But his face remained 100% calm. I'm a little interested in our creator. If it's convenient for you, don't regret it. Yin Nuoxing laughed, turned and walked into the huge crack with Hui and the rest, and left an energy mark to close the crack. After crossing the crack, a large amount of impact suddenly erupted in front of them, almost sinking Yin Nuoxing and the rest into nothingness. There was a barrier in front of them that withstood this round of saturated energy bombardment. Taking a closer look, it was Monarch Green, I Ching, and the rest who had set up a formation to take out the energy towers. As there were only a little more than 100 people, there were only about 10 energy towers this time. The 100-meter-tall energy towers were a mix of white and gold, and they were equipped with energy crystals of various functions. They were still not very eye-catching in this starry sky. Compared to the energy fireworks that erupted in the distance, they were not very eye-catching. The people of the distorted race deeply understood the principle that they could not even spit out a mouthful of phlegm. Even if they wanted to beat their own ancestors, they would just beat them up first and talk later. They would beat them to death. The outcome of the battle would be known later. Either the other party would throw a punch at them and send them flying like flies, or they would be blasted into nothingness by an energy of unknown origin. Is the entire army attacking? Yin Nuoxing looked around. Where is Chang Kong? Lord Feng. He is not here. Although they seem to be fighting fiercely, there is not a single peak origin on the other side. Monarch Green could not help but say, that shouldn't be the case. Hui scratched his head in confusion. It has already come to this point, and not a single peak origin has come out? The only heavenly god of origin that we have seen was tricked into jumping into a well. How can Chang Kong be so sure that these guys can get rid of the primordial seed? Streaks of energy crossed the starry sky and burst into huge energy sparks on their energy barrier. However, those were not the energy that came towards them. They were just 1 or 2 stray arrows that crossed the starry sky and rushed towards them. Yin Nuoxing could feel that the center of gravity of the entire starry sky was still at the place where the energy flames erupted. Compared to the movement over there, the place where they were was too quiet and inconspicuous. Then came the next thing. Yin Nuashing did not expect that Monarch Green and the others had already brought out the energy towers when they came over. Listening to Huey's conversation with them, it seemed that they had some strategies and ideas. The first idea was the same as before. Some of them would stay here, while the others would continue to sneak into their worlds through the teleportation gates and destroy their worlds. The second idea was what Feng had just mentioned. They would divide the remaining 100 or so people into 3 groups. One group would only leave a few people to guard here, while the others would split into 2 groups and attack the other worlds of the distorted race at the same time. With the energy towers, even if they split into 2 groups, their combat power would only be higher than before, and their speed would also be much faster. After fighting for half a day, they had only destroyed 2 worlds of the distorted race. The speed was a little slow. Well, if you insist on splitting, you can form a 4th group, Yin Nuashing suddenly said while listening. Hui and the others were stunned. Huh? Yin Nuashing pointed to herself. Let Yuan Ji and Monarch Green lead one group, and you lead the other. I'll go and destroy their worlds by myself. Wouldn't that be perfect? Everyone thought about it, and felt that Lord Observer's words were reasonable. Moreover, this method of fighting was also very much in line with Lord Observer's style of rushing into the depths of the enemy's world. However, it might not be appropriate to let Lord Observer cut the grass at this time. They were worried that they would fall into an ambush. The distorted race's bastards also had a powerful backup plan. Just because they hadn't seen it yet didn't mean that they wouldn't see it in a while. At present, there were 4 plans in front of them. Everyone was discussing it, and even the little angel came out to say that the 4th plan was not advisable. After all, they were still in the enemy's lair. If they really ran into something unexpected, he himself would be injured. In the end, Hui clapped his hands and ended the discussion. Then let's divide into 3 groups. Yiqing, you guys stay here with young Master Shen. Then I'll lead one group, and Feng, you'll lead the other group. This is the safest way, and the speed won't be slow. After saying that, he threw his gaze at Yin Nuashing. She could only shrug her shoulders. Okay, it's not a problem. Young Master Shun did not have any objections. When he heard that the follow-up operation was finally finalized, he opened his mouth to remind them. Also, you guys should be as careful as possible. What we encountered just now were just some worlds guarding the borders. Although I don't know why there were so few guards, the main forces were not arranged in those places in the first place. The deeper we go, the more enemies we will encounter. In the end, he scratched his cheek. If they haven't changed any arrangements, in theory, that's right. Okay, then I'll see you later. Hui nodded to Yin Nuashing, turned around, and disappeared with Qing Jun and the others in half of the energy towers. Yin Nuashing glanced at the depths of the starry sky and quickly left with her people. She aimed at a portal that was about to close and headed to another world. Before rushing into the portal, they had habitually propped up an energy barrier, but this time they were not impacted by tons of energy. It was a bit too calm. The whole starry sky seemed too quiet, as if there were only lonely stars burning silently all over the whole starry sky. It was so quiet that there was no sign of life at all. Strange, why is there no movement at all? Yin Nuashing murmured doubtfully. She let her soul quickly scour the starry sky, rushed to the edge of the starry sky, and swept the world back and forth dozens of times. In the end, she came to a conclusion. There was no one here. No one. Jing Yuanji came to the same conclusion a moment later. There are large fluctuations of transfer in the space. There should have been people here just now, but now they have all gone to the world just now. Did they finally feel threatened and attack with the whole army? Yin Nuashing murmured, and found Huey's soul seed in her soul. There's no situation here at all. What a coincidence. I was just about to tell you that there's nothing here either. Hui kept nodding. He looked at the starry sky, which was so empty that there weren't even many stars. Sporadic energy flares occasionally burst out in the starry sky, which were transmitted to his eyes at a synchronized speed. That was the movement of Qing Jun and the others looking for enemies in this world, and his soul had completely exposed this world to their eyes. There were only the remains of stars and other planets. Other than that, there wasn't even any distortion energy. He didn't know if those energies were brought along when they left. Young Master Shun was also stunned when he heard this. He looked at the starry sky that was still fighting fiercely in front of him. So far, no one seemed to have discovered these uninvited guests. Everyone was dealing with the 8 giants. But the number of people in this place is really not that many. Altogether, it's only the power of 2 or 3 worlds at most. Where did those people go? How would I know? Don't ask me. Yin Nuashing rolled her eyes and was confused. It seems that the plan that had just been formulated is going to change again. Hui and the others expressed curiosity. What kind of change? Yin Nuashing looked at the empty starry sky in front of her. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and with a wave of her palm, dark red energy swept toward all parts of the starry sky. Tear this place down, we'll break through it head-on. Qing Jun and the others shouted, expressing their approval of this method of fighting. But Huey's face was full of sweat when he heard it, and his whole person was not very good. But looking at the current situation, it was indeed better this way. He didn't know where the people of these worlds had gone. Instead of following the portal around, it was better to directly confront them head-on. He didn't believe that he couldn't lure Chong Kong and the others out like this. If they really couldn't lure them out, then there might be something else that was going to happen. We shouldn't be so unlucky, right? Yin Nuashing couldn't help but mutter in her heart, feeling that her heart was in a mess. In the starry sky, the chaotic battle had not stopped since the beginning. In the chaotic battlefield, only countless energies could be seen flying, and energy flames occupied every inch of sight. The whole world seemed to be soaked in a sea of energy. Although the battlefield was extremely chaotic, they knew very well who they were fighting. The only thing they didn't know was who was hitting them. Their line of sight was occupied by the energies of themselves and their own people. The place where the energy was flying seemed to have a cluster of nebula, and from it, there were frequent counterattacks. If they didn't sense it, they wouldn't know who was attacking whom. A beam of light mixed with a large amount of dark energy shot out from the nebula, sweeping across the area like a sword of stars. Many people were so frightened that they hurriedly changed their positions. Under such circumstances, no one dared to charge forward and engage in melee combat. It was enough for them to switch positions and buy time by firing a few shots of dark energy from afar. The commander of an unknown world was commanding the battle loudly when he suddenly felt someone patting his shoulder. He couldn't help but be stunned. As soon as he turned around, he saw a beautiful girl smiling at him. "Hello, please do me a favor." The commander stopped in shock and quickly identified the person in front of him. He then asked, "What is it?" "It's..." Yin Nuashing's hand that grabbed his shoulder suddenly tightened, and the smile on her face became brighter and brighter. A dark red energy quickly appeared in her hand and wrapped around the person in front of her. Then, she pushed him away. "Please send a signal." "Huh?" The commander was stunned until he sensed the wrong energy. He sensed the order on Yin Nuashing's body that was far different from theirs. His expression suddenly changed, and he shouted, "Order attack! Enemy attack! Thank you for your cooperation." Yin Nuashing's hand seals changed, and a power that originated from the entire void suddenly collapsed toward the dark red ball. Myriad creation leads the void, chaos falls the stars. The abruptly lit energy fireworks illuminated the starry sky like a piece of white paper. Everyone turned their attention to it and saw a colorful energy ball expanding wildly. In an instant, it covered the entire area of the nebula. Then, a seemingly eternal light penetrated the energy ball from above. A destructive energy of order filled the air, making everyone feel the threat of death. Chapter 1456. It seemed that many things always like to start with a violent explosion, such as the creation of heaven and earth, the annihilation of the world, and the great reincarnation. A vigorous energy explosion indicated the reversal of heaven and earth, and the reversal of order and chaos. There was also the scene in front of them. It was as if everything in the world had been thrown into a pot to stew. Order and chaos blurred the boundary, and only that one mass of energy was agitating. Everything recognized by order and chaos fell into that mass of energy like a waterfall, followed by a brilliant eternal light falling from the sky. Boom! An energy movement that was probably not weaker than the explosion of the great reincarnation rumbled in the void. Energy shock waves visible to the naked eye swept out, sending the first 8 seeds flying. All the powerhouses of the distorted race were shaken by the shock wave and spat out blood. Their bodies disintegrated. Before the subsequent energy explosion even touched them, they had already been beaten to the point where they couldn't even find the path of reincarnation. The constantly flashing light indicated that the energy was blooming again and again. The land of nothingness was almost slapped into the space of the real world. The emergence of the starting ground did not affect the flow of this energy. Instead, it made it more violent and dazzling. In an area far away, the light shook an invisible spherical area until it revealed itself. The light dragged the shadow of this black spherical area hundreds of miles long. It seemed that one could see the intensity of this impact from the trembling shadow. The people inside also covered their eyes and screamed. They were all people who did not listen to advice and stared at the moment of creation of the heavens and earth with their eyes wide open. Hui was so scared that he dyed the barrier black before Yin could say anything. Even so, it still could not completely block the light. That was the destructive impact that contained the energy of the disintegration of order. Just looking at it with one's eyes and sensing it with one's perception would affect the destructive impact of the impact. Xing LV closed his eyes and could not help but clap. Wonderful, wonderful, dazzling. At this moment, I Ching's back was facing the bright light behind him. When he saw that I Ching also had his back facing the light with his eyes closed, he could not help but be stunned. Why are you closing your eyes? Xing LV was silent for 2 seconds, and his hands stopped moving. A moment later, he took a deep breath and said, "It's too damn bright." I Ching was speechless. Well, this guy didn't take the warning seriously. He deserved to be blind for a while. I Ching didn't care about them. When he knew that Lord Maple was going to make a move, he quickly turned around. After all, he had already suffered once, and he didn't want to suffer a second time. That was a little too much for him. He still remembered clearly that when he saw the collapse of order that day, it was as if all the colors in the world had disappeared, leaving only white. For half a month, colors didn't return to his world, and he was colorblind for half a month. When the light subsided a little, everyone carefully turned their heads. There was still an extremely dazzling light at the place where the energy had exploded. It was like the sun after an energy nova, leaving only a pile of bright ashes. However, it was no longer as strong as before. Now, they could use their eyes to look at it. As long as they didn't stare at it all the time, it would be fine. Hui poked his head out from behind the guardian shield and looked outside. His cheeks reddened. This place of nothingness has been shattered, and the void won't start to recover for a while. You call this letting them notify? Are you sure you're not going to notify them yourself? Qing Jun put down his hands that were covering his eyes and blinked hard. That won't blow up those 8 big guys, will it? As soon as his voice fell, a furious roar containing the power of the rules shook the void. Everyone turned their eyes and saw that the dazzling light suddenly dissipated. 8 huge figures covered in dark energy rushed out from the light. However, looking at the thin appearance of their energy, it seemed that they had suffered heavy injuries. Moreover, they had become even more violent. Further away, they could see the powerhouses of the distorted clan crawling up from the void. Each of them was seriously injured and vomiting blood. Their bodies were almost completely blown up. More than a dozen of them were only left with soul bodies. Lord Maple has suppressed the energy and damage in all aspects by half. Even so, it still caused extremely serious damage. We rub his eyes. The goal has been achieved, but the effect is a little too much. The rest is to see how they will react. I Ching, those 8 seeds won't go looking for trouble with Lord Maple, right? I just wanted to say this, but Lord Maple himself said that there won't be a problem. Then let's wait and see. We just have to wait for the signal. Hui shook his head. He wasn't quite sure what that guy was selling in his gourd. In the gradually subsiding energy flames, the 8 big guys suddenly turned their eyes and walked toward the place in the void. They didn't seem to want to fight. They just wanted to do something with their obsession. Stop them. Don't let them leave this void. The other commanders who were seriously injured quickly stood up and directed the rest of the people to suppress the first seed. Several of them flashed and appeared in front of Yin Nuashing. Scarlet energy surged all over their bodies, and their eyes were full of anger. Who are you? We don't seem to have any great enmity with you. There is, or there isn't. This isn't something that you can decide. Yin Nuashing floated in the void. His originally low voice was filled with coldness because of this sentence. He chuckled a few times. You've invaded our world time and time again. Now, I'm just responding to your war invitation. Why do you dare to stop me with just these few people? In the blink of an eye, tens of millions of magical matrices emerged along with the energy to shatter the void. Each of the magical matrices drew a gigantic character and aimed neatly in one direction. Before they began to coalesce and erupt with energy, their appearance alone was enough to send chills down everyone's spine. The instant the leaders witnessed this array, they understood who they were facing. All of a sudden, their gazes revealed a strange glint. Coming alone, Lord Observer is very courageous. A commander with half his face covered in blood suddenly clapped his hands. His eyes suddenly became ferocious. But if you're alone, you won't be leaving today. As soon as his roar fell, he took a fierce step forward. The scarlet energy on his body suddenly boiled. His entire body charged towards Yin Nuo planet like a torch. The land of nothingness trembled slightly. Oh, I think I can deal with you all alone. What the hell? Yin Nuashing deliberately put on a show to stall for time. He didn't attack immediately. He was just stalling for time. Then, he saw the torch burning more and more vigorously and brighter. Then, a terrifying dark energy burst out from deep within his body and dyed the torch black. He was instantly shocked. For the eternal curse, like a flaming meteor, it shot towards the formations with a long trail of flames. Without giving anyone time to react, the flaming meteor shone with an extremely dazzling light. An energy that seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth surged in the void along with a huge tremor. Even the commanders turned pale with fright and were sent flying by the shockwave. The energy shock wave of the heavenly god of Origin's self-destruction was indeed very powerful. Hui and the others who had received the signal and were entering the portal in the distance couldn't help but look back at the commotion. What the hell? After saying that, they hurriedly entered the portal. They didn't have much time. They didn't have any confidence in leaving Yin Nuashing alone outside to face a group of madmen. The rumbling of energy that was like the creation or destruction of the world lasted for a full 10 minutes before it dissipated. When the storm weakened to a certain extent, suddenly, a hand that was so small that it would be automatically ignored reached out from the storm and casually tore apart the raging energy storm, pushing it to the side. Yin Nuashing's figure appeared from within. He casually patted his robe, and even his aura did not fluctuate at all. In fact, he was still a little stunned by the explosion. The heavenly god of Origin self-destructed just because he wanted to. Was it because he couldn't take it? He looked at the remaining commanders who were stunned. Seeing that their injuries were even more severe, he couldn't help but sigh in amazement. When the people from your family went crazy, they even attacked their own people. The commanders' faces twitched crazily. A heavenly god who was close to the peak of Origin had ignited all the energy in his body to self-destruct in front of him, sweeping him into the center of the storm. In the end, nothing happened to him. The light on his body didn't even dim at all. Even the formation beside him didn't deviate by a centimeter. This level of terror was beyond their imagination. The anger that had just surged up had mostly dissipated. Yin Nuashing glanced around and looked at the few big guys and the experts of the distorted race who were still fighting fiercely. Suddenly, He reached out his hand and tapped lightly in the void. Tens of thousands of formations rumbled and erupted with endless energy, destroying the people of the distorted race one by one. The resistance that the few big eyes faced suddenly decreased by a lot. Although I don't know what happened to you and why you're stopping those guys, it looks like they'll cause some damage to you. That's enough. Yin Nuoxing grinned. He stared ahead with a bright and charming smile. Yin Nuoxing only felt a sense of powerlessness. If he was in peak condition and had a complete team, he would have the courage and strength to fight back. However, the current situation was just too difficult for him. He had been heavily injured by Wan Xiang, Star, and his soul had been shaken by the self-destruction of his own people. He was basically on his last breath. The heavenly god of Origin's life force was powerful enough that he could treat his last breath as half of his strength. If it were a heavenly god of Origin with the same level of injuries, he would probably be lying on the ground trembling. Yin Nuoxing slowly walked up to them. He was in no hurry to kill them. The formation behind him constantly rumbled and emitted energy, destroying the chaos spawns that had come to support him. He also heavily injured all the distorted race that appeared. Then, what about Chongkong? Where's your family? Did they give up on you? Yin Nuoxing walked up to them and looked down at them from above. He spoke casually. The heavily armored commander lowered his head and dug out his almost completely shattered armor. He raised his right hand that still had a little bit of strength left and raised his scarlet greatsword. He looked up at Yin Nuoxing with incomparable calmness. He knew that he was going to die without a doubt. Fear, panic, or anything else would be useless. He simply faced the threat head-on. Lord Chongkong doesn't need to come out to deal with you. Oh, Yin Nuoxing replied nonchalantly. He waved his hand and formed a few energy chains that wrapped around the bodies of the commanders. They did not struggle. Perhaps they knew that resistance was futile, so they simply stopped moving. I won't let you die too easily. Since you're so stubborn, I'll let you bear witness to it all. Their cheeks twitched. Stubbornness, my ass. We want to run, but the problem is that we don't have the strength to do so. Furthermore, we can't run away. With a wave of his hand, Yin Nuoxing strung them up. He turned his head and looked at where Hui and the others were. When he found that they had gone somewhere else, he breathed a sigh of relief. He then led the commanders to the place where the energy was fluctuating. The countless formations behind him roared again and aimed at the champions of the distorted race. The champions of the distorted race had lost their commander. Even if they had chaos spawns with them, they could only end up being massacred by the 8 gigantic energy bodies in Yin Nuoxing. A dazzling energy phenomenon suddenly bloomed in the void. This was a one-sided massacre. The battle ended in just a few minutes. Even the cracks used for teleportation were closed by Yin Nuoxing. He turned around and looked at the few commanders who were silent. After thinking for a while, he decided to stay silent with them. If he suddenly opened his mouth and they ignored him, it would be awkward. The stars suddenly calmed down. There were no more energy surges. The giants had just gone through a series of fierce battles. Now, the huge wounds on their bodies were slowly healing. They had used their faces to receive the skills. Their brains were muddled by the dark energy and the sins of the world. They had almost lost their ability to think. The only thing left in them was the desire to kill and destroy, driven by the 2 forces of darkness. In other words, they only knew how to beat people up and did not know how to defend themselves. That was how their injuries were caused. The rock-like giant suddenly roared, and lava-like light flickered in the cracks on his body. They waved their arms in vain in this land of nothingness. Several giants roared one after another. Then, they turned their eyes in unison and roared in a direction of the land of nothingness. They were following their conditioned reflexes and instincts, sensing something and doing something. Just as Yin Nuoxing was guessing out of boredom, he saw the giant suddenly reach into the void with one hand. Then a huge scarlet crack suddenly opened up in front of him. Behind the crack was the starry sky of another world. The giants behind him also helped, tearing the crack even bigger. Under their unreasonable strength, the crack was torn bigger and bigger. The void that was already nothingness forcefully burst out with many energy explosions. Waves of dazzling energy explosions erupted from the edges of the expanding crack, illuminating the void. Roar! Roar! No one knew whether the rock giant had seen or felt something, but the rock giant who had torn open the door suddenly roared. His voice shook the land of nothingness. He took a huge step and stepped into another world. The other rock giants roared and forced the crack to expand again. Then, they followed the rock giant into another world. As the last rock giant left, the crack began to slowly heal, like a long and narrow eye that was slowly closing. The other world, what is there in it that is worth their attention? Yin Nuashing muttered to himself. He inadvertently turned his head to look at the people behind him. He saw that their faces were still calm, but that calmness was restored in an instant. Before he turned his head, they should have been abnormally frightened. There was still a faint trace of fear left on their faces. Yin Nuashing got the answer he wanted. He grinned and casually walked in a crack. He waved his hand in front of his eyes, and the crack closed. He turned back and looked at the front. It was an unusually fierce battle. It had been going on for a while. The power of the distorted race to guard this world was exceptionally strong. The 8 giants were disturbed and could not move forward. They waved their arms wildly to resist the energy coming from all directions. This world seemed to be very important. The former and the others were particularly crazy when they fought. It made Yin Nuashing feel like he was looking at the people of the spirit-gathering continent. When the tide of chaos approached the range of the last 3 energy barriers, they abandoned life, death, and emotions. They just wanted to destroy the enemy in front of them. The scene in front of him was quite similar to that day. Yin Nuashing looked back at them and grinned. Let me guess, this is a very important world to you? The leaders closed their eyes and turned their heads away. Their faces were gloomy and they did not say a word. A hub of the void? A border? Or is this your main world? Yin Nuashing guessed one by one. When he mentioned the last type, he saw their eyebrows twitch slightly. He instantly understood everything. However, when he saw their unconvinced and indifferent looks, he couldn't help but snort lightly. Since you dared to provoke us and attack the divine realm, then you should be mentally prepared to be beaten back by others. You should never, ever provoke us. I don't care what plans you have. Whether it's order or chaos, it's all up to your heart. If you want to go crazy, then go away and go crazy. Don't be a hindrance here. After saying that, he suddenly slapped his own forehead. Sigh, I forgot. You bunch of trash are from the Order faction. But, forget it. Both sides snorted inwardly. No one took the other seriously. Yin Nuashing treated them as a bunch of idiots, while the latter treated his words like a fart. In this vast and boundless void, there was no real right or wrong to speak of. There were only different standpoints, different goals, and even different beliefs. Countless lives fought and worked hard for these. If they could toss these aside and repent with just a few words, then their countless years of life would have been wasted and their high-tier origins would have been wasted. Just now, Yin Nuashing had only guessed that this was a very important world to them. Now that he saw all the defensive forces here, he no longer doubted it. He was now convinced that this was their main world. Several huge portals opened in the sky, and champions from other worlds came to support. As for the chaotic tide, they came from all over the stars of this world. Their silhouettes also surged out from the cracks beside the portals. However, the number of reinforcements was relatively small compared to the number of chaos spawns in this world. Moreover, the people guarding this world fought with their lives on the line. At this point, Yin Nuashing naturally saw the peak Empyrean gods of origin. The distorted race was indeed powerful. They were directly created by the demonic shadow that stood near the top of the non-order plane. Although they had been diluted to such a degree into distorted energy, they still seemed to have a way to activate that dark energy. Their combat strength would also increase, and under such circumstances, their brains would also be thrown away. Therefore, when the 8 first seeds charged into this world, their advance was finally firmly pressed to the ground, unable to move an inch. The encirclement energy that erupted from all directions made it impossible for them to move an inch. The news of the attack on the origin world should have been transmitted to the remaining worlds, and more experts came to reinforce them. They also brought along many similar trump cards, all of which were powerful forces used to protect their race. Yin Nuoxing had been watching the battle in front of him. This was why he was nervous when facing a powerful enemy. However, the number was still too small. They had already fought to this place, but only a small number of the distorted race had appeared. Including all the distorted race that had been killed by them and the first seeds, there were probably less than 7,000 of them. Moreover, there were still 5,000 of them in front of him. A powerful race that was born in more than a dozen worlds and more than a dozen eras, which he judged to be a dangerous race that could compete with the divine realm. He did not believe that there were so few of them. Furthermore, vast sky had not appeared yet, and a portion of them had not appeared like he did. For some reason, he suddenly felt a little uneasy, as if something big was going to happen. Phone! One of the worlds next to us has been cleared out. If you see any signs over there, give us a shout. The voice in his soul interrupted his thoughts. Yin Nuoxing looked up and looked at the starry sky that was filled with chaos minions of various sizes shrouded in black fog. He saw that they had been blown into clouds by the explosion of energy. After a moment, he turned his head and noticed that there was a portal and rift in the starry sky that was slowly closing. There was also an energy flame erupting there. Something seemed to have happened inside. Confirmed that the rift and portal have closed. Did you guys destroy that world? Yin Nuoxing asked. No, we just blew up that part of the starry sky. There were ordinary people in that world. We waited for quite a while until they were almost gone before wiping out the remaining group of people. Then we blew up the door and those things. By the way, I found some interesting things that you will definitely be interested in. He looked at the things in front of him and suddenly beamed with joy as he said excitedly. Yin Nuoxing was slightly interested. What is it? The place where the chaos minions were created. Chapter 1457. The chaotic tides and chaos spawns were similar to the weaker, inferior versions of the abyssal death mist spawns. Yin Nuo and the others had no idea how the distorted race had managed to create so many cannon fodder that possessed tremendous amounts of energy and could use powerful energy attacks. Correct, the chaos spawns were the same as the abyssal death mist spawns. They were both relatively powerful cannon fodder, so they were divided into many levels. The chaos spawns that filled the entire cosmos were high-level cannon fodder. The most powerful attacks they could use were between gods and origin gods. There were a few core reciprocity individuals that were similar to low-level commanders. However, there were extremely few of them. There were only a few hundred of them in front of Yin Nuo, and if they were split into several hundred squads, where a reciprocity expert led several thousand gods. Whether it was the abyssal death mist spawns or the chaos spawns, they had no idea how they came to be. They only knew that the main component of their existence was energy, and it was their own energy. 90% of the chaos spawns were composed of distorted energy, while the abyssal death mist spawns were composed entirely of the abyssal death mist spawns. The exact conditions for the former were still unclear, while the latter could create the abyssal death mist spawns by devouring all kinds of energy, including spatial energy, before transforming them into various strange, disgusting spawns. They came in all sorts of shapes and sizes, while the chaos spawns were basically humanoid in shape. The only difference was their size. He had already seen the birthplace of the abyssal death mist spawn. Although he had seen it, he did not delve into it, nor did he have the means to delve into it. He had his guesses, but there was no proof. How did they create the chaos spawn? He was very curious about this. As he was curious, he suddenly had a thought. I wonder if the two of them, one genuine and one inferior, would clash when they meet. When they were created, Yin Nuoxing murmured, replying in his soul, all right then. Take a look and see if there's anything strange. No, foe. I think you should come and take a look yourself. Hui interrupted Yin Nuoxing's words and stunned him. He hesitated as he looked at the chaotic space in front of him. Looking at the 8 big guys that were surrounded, he nodded and left behind a teleportation array. All right, I'll go over and take a look. Hui nodded and waved his hand to get I Ching and the others to move a distance away. Through the connection of the two priesthoods, he found Maple's aura and then used his divine soul to pull him to his side. Suddenly, a few figures appeared in the space beside them. Everyone was stunned when they saw them. Other than Yin Nuoxing, there were also a few people who were tied up. Lord Feng, can these people be torn apart? Qing Jun pointed to the people tied up behind him. That won't do. They're still useful. Keep an eye on them first. Yin Nuoxing rolled her eyes at him and threw the chain to them. She turned to Xiang Hui and asked, "Where's the manufacturing site that you mentioned?" "It's here. The destination is this thing in front of us." Hui raised his hand and pointed to the front. Yin Nuoxing then looked around. This was an empty place. They might be standing on a barren planet, but the barren planet was not barren in itself. There were many energy storm clouds that had not dissipated in time. There was also a huge amount of order energy surging inside the planet. The surface of the planet was turbulent like magma. Large pieces of the earth were surging on magma, crashing into the few remaining plates of the planet at a speed of a few hundred meters per second. They were standing on an isolated island that was hundreds of feet long and wide. This island was fixed by Hui and the others and would not drift. However, looking at the situation of the red light filling the sky, Yin Nuoxing did not know what Hui and the others had done to this planet before he came. Just a little tidying up. Being stared at by Yin Nuoxing, Hui's face began to sweat at a speed visible to the naked eye. He turned his head and muttered. Yin Nuoxing narrowed her eyes and looked at Qing Jun and the others again. The latter and the others were also sweating profusely. Just a little tidying up, a little tidying up. Yin Nuoxing let out a deep sigh. These guys must have been careless when they attacked. They almost tore down this planet. Only then did they realize that there was something here that was not destroyed. Then, they hurried over to take a look. Young Master Shun saw Yin Nuoxing looking over, nodded and said, "This is the core of the sanctum of derivation. It is the birthplace of the chaos spawn that you mentioned." In front of them was the remains of sanctum. In the past, this sanctum should have been very grand and glorious. Now it had fallen apart. The golden red surface was stained with a layer of grayish black. There were also solidified magma blocks on top of the remains. It looked like it had rolled in magma and was fished up. You have to be mentally prepared for the things inside. We just took a look and didn't have time to delve into it, Hui said. Mental preparation? Since returning to this era, he had been mentally prepared to face any wonderful and indescribable events. Yin Nuoxing said that she had long been fearless. She took a step forward and gently pushed open the two crumbling doors. She glanced inside and said, "What the hell? Knock those guys out and throw them aside. Don't let their souls and spirits spread out." Yin Nuoxing turned around abruptly and pointed to the commanders who were tied up by her and were now being treated miserably by Qing Jun and the others. Then she said to Hui, "Let's go in and take a look." Yin Nuoxing adjusted her facial expression and took a deep breath. She walked into the main hall side by side with Hui and the others, and then closed the door. The things inside really gave her a fright. She couldn't react for a while. What is this? A biochemical research lab? I Ching, who had been holding back her words, finally waited until Lord Feng arrived. She began to complain, and the surrounding arrays, these divine patterns, magic patterns, runes, the main hall was a space of 10 square feet. Because it was only a core, the space was indeed not big. It wasn't as spacious as it looked from the outside. Every inch of space in this main hall was filled with arrays, very similar to the arrays in the divine realm, but they displayed a completely different order. Divine patterns were engraved in every inch of space. If one didn't look carefully, it was as if they saw an area with countless intertwined roots. They were crooked and twisted, stretching out from every corner of the space. They grew and spread wantonly in the air, weaving a structure like a thorny net. So much so that if one wanted to see the space of the main hall itself, they could only squint through some gaps. And these large numbers of divine patterns and arrays all extended to the deepest part of the main hall, where their core was wrapped. A figure wrapped in a disassembled array and bound in midair by countless divine patterns was fixed in place. He's the core? Yin Nuoxing walked at the very front. He stretched out his hands and pushed away the divine inscriptions that extended out from the void. It was as though he was pushing away the thorns blocking his path. He continued to walk forward, and when he arrived in front of that figure, they could clearly sense how many things existed in the surroundings. Those divine inscriptions that shouldn't have been so thick had actually condensed into ropes that extended out from all directions of the Great Hall, suspending him in midair. Yin Nuoxing looked at young Master Shun. "Do you know him?" Young Master Shun shook his head. "The sanctum of derivation has always been a forbidden area. Although I was once the young master, I was not qualified to enter, so I don't know what it's like inside. I don't know the person wrapped in divine patterns either." "How did you know this is the birthplace of the chaos spawn?" We spread his hands. "I saw it with my own eyes. I saw them continuously emerging from this part of the planet. I was annoyed, so I just smashed it." "Ugh." Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes and smashed it. He had guessed this. Jing Yuanji looked around. After a while, she suddenly found something and quickly waved her hand. "Master Feng, there's information recorded here." When Yin Nuoxing and Hui heard this, the former couldn't care less about teaching this guy a lesson for not using his brain before leading people to attack. He quickly ran over. Jing Yuanji had already finished analyzing the array. She stored the recorded information in a crystal and handed it to the two people who rushed over. Yin Nuoxing looked inside and was stunned. Information record, level 2 derivative world, mid to late 45th era. The power of order has a very serious impact on the experiment. The remains of high-level existences found from all over the void may have lost the meaning of continuing the experiment. The power of chaos is not tolerated by order. It is almost impossible to find a degree where the two can coexist stably. The eternal curse may take a long time to be lifted. Below were the records of some researchers. It was not worth looking into, so it was skipped. At the end, there was a sentence. "I can't do it. Maybe the next person can do it." Information record, level 2 derivative world, late 47th era. I've said it before. The power of order and chaos are in a state of innate hostility. Continuing the research is just a waste of energy. Why bother to stick to the world of order? Isn't it good now? There's not much value in researching it. The path of return is still far away. We need a new direction, and not to mess around with other people's corpses. The shadow in the lower realm is spreading bigger and bigger. Yesterday, someone sent a shadow over and said it was for research. The person yesterday was not the usual delivery person. Anyway, since there's nothing to do, it's better to study the things that are wreaking havoc in the world of order as a pastime. The shadow shows absolute chaos, and it definitely stands at the top of the chaotic plane. This is exactly the same as the creator. If you keep looking into it, you can actually find a very weak power of order in the deepest part of it. This might work. After that was a lot of useless information. There was nothing to see. Information record. Mid 49th era. Order. Chaos. Chaos above all. Idiots. All of them are idiots. Order? No, there's no need for order. Ah, yes, that's right. That shadow can be like this. I found the home of my race. The information seemed to be recorded by someone who was high on drugs or drunk too much without thinking. It looked messy, but it proved something. Not only Yin Nuoxing and the others looked at it strangely. Even young Master Shen looked like he wanted to say something, but stopped himself. The 49th era was the era when the incident happened. It was when the distorted race was kicked close to the origin by the shadow of their creator. At that time, they were already crazy. Yin Nuoxing flipped through the information with all his might, but it was all the ravings of lunatics. The only useful and orderly information that could be found was the records of time. Beginning of the 50th era, beginning of the 51st era, and every time a new record of time information was written, it seemed to indicate a shift in personnel. In other words, a large number of personnel had been shifted in this place. However, from the 49th era onwards, There were only a few lunatics who were not in their right minds coming to this place. Early of the 51st era, the experimental subjects sent from various worlds have been successfully turned into a new order and placed in various worlds. Today, the last batch will be sent into the lower void. From today onwards, we will enter a long period of observation. The experimental subjects carry our countless years of planning. May everything be stable for the sake of the eternal curse. The chaos spawn born from our race's chaos power has been completely formed. Although it is just a weaker version of the god's destruction power in that world, it has indeed greatly increased the combat power of our race. Moreover, from the way they were born, they have the same effect as the chaos spawn. Although it is still not 100% energy conversion, which is a little regrettable. A drop of blood can create an army of thousands. Perhaps it could be slightly strengthened. Middle of the 51st era, order chaos. We are about to throw ourselves into complete chaos. The final moment has arrived. We have prepared for this for countless years. We have poured all our power into this expedition. Everything should be under our control. For the sake of the eternal curse, we need the power of order. The world of order and the realm of the gods are ours. Time had suddenly arrived at the beginning of the 51st era. It was as if everyone had suddenly regained their senses. Not only that, even their goal had become clearer. They really wanted to do something to order. Although only this last message mentioned the realm of the gods, they had already vaguely mentioned the existence of that world before they went berserk. When they went berserk in the 49th era, they seemed to have instinctively developed an interest in the realm of the gods or order. It was not clear what kind of interest it was. Destruction or possession, these were all types of interests. The message ended here. After that, no one seemed to care about the Holy Temple anymore. They just let the Holy Temple continue to create chaos spawns and then sent them to various places to be used for expeditions. It was estimated that more than 70% of them were destroyed by the realm of the gods. They have been preparing for the realm of the gods for 2 whole eras. We murmured softly. 2 eras ago, they didn't know anything about the distorted races. It was only in the recent thousands of years that they learned about it. And when he thought about how they had been watched for 2 eras, he felt a chill run down his spine. How deep of an obsession did they have to be to watch the divine realm for so long? Was it purely a situation of innate opposition between chaos and order? He felt that it should not be just that. So, the chaos spawns are continuously created through these things, using this guy as the raw material. Yin Nuoshing raised her head and looked at the figure hanging in midair. She frowned slightly. What a crazy thing. Using one Empyrean god as the raw material to continuously create trillions of peak Empyrean gods and millions of Empyrean gods. Although this idea is a little crazy, they still succeeded. And it is indeed a huge threat. Hui frowned. The finger that was scratching his cheek suddenly trembled. He suddenly looked at Yin Nuoshing. Phone, do you remember the problem you told me about the abyssal death mist? What problem? I have told you too many things. I might not remember it if you suddenly bring it up, and I don't know what you're talking about. Yin Nuoshing turned to look at him. We took a deep breath. His voice was serious. You told us before that the abyssal death mist is the split body of a great person. Could it be that it was created in this way? Yin Nuoshing was stunned. So that was what he was talking about. Now that you mention it, it's possible. Maybe the abyssal death mist was created in this way. It's just that the parts they used in the underworld were more powerful, so they created an even more powerful abyssal death mist derivative. We took the crystal and flipped through the information inside. The abyssal death mist presents absolute chaos. It stands at the peak of chaos. He looked up with a gloomy face. If a split body of a spare part can have such power, then the main body of the spare part, Yin Nuoshing swallowed. You're not going to say that it is the main body of the specter, are you? The hall was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. The sound of the boiling lava outside was automatically blocked. No. Yin Nuoshing's voice broke the dead silence. If the underworld really has a thing that stands at the peak of the chaos plane, then why don't they just come over and crush us? Even if they want to find that thing, they can just flatten the entire 8 elements realm. No one can stop them, and moreover, at the end of his memory about the Dark Age, the 8 primordial realms have been flattened. In that case, there was no need to make such an unnecessary move. No matter how powerful the forces gathered in the upper plane were, they did not even have a single primordial god. How could they be more powerful than the underworld that had more than a dozen primordial gods? We said, what if that thing can't be controlled? What if they can only hold it in their current situation and control it? Once they let go of control, it will be a devastating disaster for them. Or it might not be able to move. There were a lot of things that needed to be done. This time, they were able to clarify some things and push an even older matter to an even more terrifying and bizarre place. No matter how much they guessed, it was useless. Only the underworld knew what was going on. Speaking of which, they were already so busy dealing with the distorted race. When the underworld army arrived, that scene was too beautiful, and they did not dare to look at it. In short, it has confirmed a lot of things. They stole the chaos spawn from the abyss of death. This fact is confirmed. Looking through the information recorded in the crystal from the beginning to the end, Yun Nuoxing and the others looked at each other. There was a lot of information about what had happened. If they really wanted to say it again, they wouldn't know where to start. Huey's gaze fell on the last piece of information, on the 2 words, Yuan Zheng. He suddenly said, Yuan Zheng. Feng, I suddenly have a bad idea. I believe you have noticed it too. You should have it too. From the time we released the first seed until now, although it was under the banner of war, we have not even encountered a single defense. The 8 big guys have attracted all their attention, but we have ambushed them back and forth so many times. You have also faced them head-on once and appeared in front of them openly. But until now, we still have not seen Zhang Kong himself. No one has even noticed that we have appeared here. They did not send any information. Yun Nuoxing continued his words. He had long noticed that something was very wrong with the way this battle was fought. Rather than saying that it was a battle, it was more like a group of people were playing with another group of people like monkeys. The rhythm did not match, and the combat power did not match. The combat power that was left behind in this group of worlds was indeed very strong, but there was no need for Yun Nuoxing to bring people to attack. Just by relying on himself as a guardian, we could slowly take them down, even if the 8 seeds did not come out to cause trouble. But until now, they did not feel that they were about to win at all. On the contrary, the creepy feeling was getting stronger and stronger, as if there were hundreds of needles aimed at their backs. If it were us, if the realm of the gods was attacked, even if we were separated by a void, we would still have a way to send this information back, just like last time. Yun Nuoxing turned to look at Jing Yuanji. The latter met his gaze and nodded. This was the situation when the distorted attacked last time. Then they're holding back and playing dirty tricks. Hui rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. Suddenly, he waved his hand. Forget it. Since they don't want to defend, let's take this place down first. Full force. Don't hold anything back. Fight. Chapter 1458. There is something wrong with this battle from the beginning to the end. From sneaking and hiding at the beginning, it developed to changing places after a fight, chasing each other, and finally, it was now a direct confrontation. Boom! Yun Nuoxing also made an earth-shattering entrance. Every trace of energy in his body released a huge hostility of come and fight, and then no one paid attention to him. It didn't matter. There was a corresponding reason behind every placement, such as this and that. Maybe the other side was scheming and setting up an ambush, but Big Brother, we've already come to your home. More than half of your 20 or 30 worlds have now been destroyed. There are 8 madmen in the main world making a scene, and they're being watched by more than 100 people. They have already removed any concealment and openly appeared in front of everyone, releasing the message of come and fight to your heart's content. However, except for the energy transferred to their faces, no one intended to stall for time and wait for reinforcements. They rushed forward recklessly, and the next second, they retreated. Yin Nuashing felt that these guys were not much different from the Abyss Death Mist derivative and the group from the underworld. Their brains were probably damaged. "I have a tactic," Qing Jun suddenly shouted. "Say it. Raid? Raid together. Isn't this a raid?" The noisy starry sky was divided into dozens of battlefields, large and small. Among them, 3 battlefields were particularly dazzling and eye-catching. One was the distorted race, besieging 8 giants, and the other 2 were besieging Lord Feng and Lord Hui respectively. No, it should be the 2 lords besieging the large group of people. Xinglu was very involved in the battle. His figure rushed to the front of a high-level origin and slapped it to death. Flames swarmed up and swallowed his soul. His body was like a sun, spewing out dozens of kinds of flames. Intermittently, storms of flames and lightning swept out. His movements were very huge and very magnificent. But in a blink of an eye, he saw that not many people were paying attention to him. Compared with others, Yin Nuashing, Hui, and Qing Jun's movements were very big, and they couldn't wait to attract people from other worlds. Raid? Xinglu's expression was a little strange. Seeing that Qing Jun was constantly expanding his battle circle and wanted to join the 2 lords, he couldn't help but mutter, "Which one of them needs support?" Although he said that, he was still vigilant of his surroundings as he beat them up. The 2 of them had intended to cause a big commotion, but when he looked up, the starry sky was silent. It had been a while since any portals or rifts opened. He felt that this battle was a little strange. They were doing everything they could to lure the enemy over, and then the enemy would start fighting with them. They did not say much, nor did they do anything. They would either attack in anger or self-destruct. It was just like some of the people who stayed behind to cover the rear. He didn't know what was wrong. Since not many people came to him, even if he increased the brightness a little, it was useless. He was happy to slow down a little. While destroying the enemy unhurriedly, he thought about the situation along the way. From the time they appeared in the low-level area until now, when the starry sky was locked down and there was a big fight. Thinking about it, he felt that, sure enough, he still felt that something was wrong. At some moments when big shots should have appeared, the opposite side was strangely quiet. They did not do anything, as if there was no way to do anything. They did not block the world barrier, but deliberately left it open to let the people of the distorted race call for reinforcements. But as just said, this starry sky was so quiet that there was no movement of reinforcements. Xinglu let out a long breath, shook his head, and continued to devote himself to killing the enemy. He hoped that his speculations were just random thoughts. The 2 of them should also have some countermeasures. Perhaps they did not have any expectations of the distorted race calling for reinforcements. Yin Nuashing and Hui did not show any mercy. Both sides were beating each other to death. But in the absence of Long Sky, they could not use their means to fight against the higher beings. The distorted race did not have any means to deal with them as a threat. It should have been so, but it turned out that they had underestimated some of the enemies that they had to be careful with. The minions of chaos that emerged from the cracks gathered together and suddenly exploded into balls of crimson energy. A little black energy suddenly appeared in the center, like a core. In just a few seconds, millions of minions of chaos had all turned into crimson energy with a core. Then, they rapidly collided and began to fuse. Their bodies grew bigger and bigger, expanding rapidly. The black cores also collided and fused into an even bigger black core. An unusually bright light burst out from the core, and the light caused the crimson energy to show abnormal changes. Then, a figure that looked like a commander suddenly shouted for the undying curse and plunged into the crimson energy ball, melting instantly. This race really knows how to give people surprises. Hui said to Yin Nuashing as he blocked an idiot with his shield and looked at the irregular energy ball that filled the sky. Yin Nuashing looked at the energy ball. After the commander rushed in, the huge scarlet energy ball changed for the 3rd time. The black core in the center suddenly turned into a human figure. It was the guy who had just rushed in. He had become the control point of that energy cluster, giving that energy cluster its own consciousness. The moment the core transformed into a human form, the ball of energy suddenly became abnormally bright, as if it was releasing its own dazzling light, like a sun. The energy reaction inside it became unprecedentedly violent as the black humanoid moved. Then, the ball of energy rolled and suddenly spat out a scarlet energy beam that almost condensed into a solid substance towards Yunhua planet. The overloaded energy impact had already shattered the surrounding space when it was formed. At this time, even the space in the path was completely shattered. In just an instant, it rushed in front of the ladder. Bang! Yun Nuashing casually raised an energy barrier to allow the scarlet energy beam to directly crash into it. Looking at the huge energy that was spreading in all directions, his gaze changed slightly. It's an energy impact with consciousness. They are not energy life forms themselves. Logically speaking, they should not be able to control their own energy like energy life forms. They should not be able to make all the energy carry a faint consciousness, but another way. He sent the guy who was beaten in front of him flying with a whip kick, turning him into a huge energy rain. It seems that this is the method that these people can use when they risk their lives. Boom! Before his voice fell, a huge scarlet energy human figure that was thousands of miles tall suddenly stood up in the starry sky. Black energy surged all over his body, just like the chaotic derivatives. However, the one in front of them was very huge and had a realistic and detailed human figure. The black energy surging on his body was the energy of the demon shadow. It seemed that they needed to fuse a certain amount to make that dark energy reach a level where it could be used. The giant's appearance was caught off guard. His arm, which was like a galaxy, waved and rotated with the starry sky, and one of the energy giants was sent flying with a punch. When the giant flew out, the energy on his body suddenly exploded, and several huge shock waves roared and shattered the space and void. At the same time, Qing Jun, who was behaving wildly and happily, was sent flying. The energy impact of the explosion scattered their people. Hui looked at it blankly. One of them. Damn, this is really unscientific. These guys still have this trick up their sleeve? Why didn't they use it just now? You have to ask them. Yun Nuashing shouted softly, and several layers of arrays appeared on his hand. As he punched the energy light beam in front of him, the arrays collapsed. The power of the collapsed arrays forcibly scattered the energy light beam, and at the same time, the huge energy mass was smashed into a depression. He shook his hand. It's quite hard, seeing that the mass continued to expand and was already the size of dozens of huge suns. The energy surging inside had reached the peak of origin. I Ching and the others could not help but whistle when they sensed the energy movement. Then, they hurriedly left the battlefield and ran to the side. If they were scraped by that thing, they would not have a good ending. Oh, first, you guys don't use your domain. Second, your order is lower than mine. Third, you guys still display such a large amount of energy in front of me. Yin Nuashing murmured as he stretched out his hand, aiming at the huge energy mass that continued to expand and become more and more unstable as it expanded. He squeezed his palm hard. You guys are really looking for death. A few dull sounds suddenly rang out from the energy mass. The sound shook the universe, and it caused everyone in the starry sky to shift their attention for a moment. They saw that the huge energy mass suddenly protruded like a whale jumping out of the water. That was the huge flow of energy that had erupted from the energy mass. The entire energy mass became turbulent under the interference of Yin Nuashing. The energy that made I Ching and the others palpitate suddenly disappeared. Instead, the experts of the distorted race were sweating in their hearts, as if the direction of the energy mass had suddenly changed. Your energy will be used by me. With a demonic growl, the energy mass flickered violently. Then, with a sudden flash, it appeared on another battlefield. The sudden flash of energy caused everyone's expression to change drastically. They hurriedly put up their defenses, and their faces turned green. While he was controlling that huge mass of energy, there were also several high-level sources close to the peak that rushed up to kill Yin and restore control of that massive energy. However, before they could get close to him, a mass of sacred golden energy whizzed out like a hurricane and cleared the place in an instant. Hui slammed his shield into the void. "Don't even think about going there. You beat them up, I'll help you hold them back." Hui turned his head and grinned at Yin Nuoxing, revealing a row of shiny teeth. "Oh," Yin Nuoxing responded. She waved her hand and continued to let the energy mass they had condensed jump around on the battlefield. It suddenly appeared behind everyone like a neurotic person, and with a bang, it erupted with a new energy mass. Then it ran in front of them and knocked them back again. It was like kicking a rubber ball. In just a few minutes, the distorted race people were almost killed by the same means. Xing LV felt that the experts of the distorted race should be wailing in their hearts at this moment while greeting the opposite family. However, he heard that the two clerics were of the same family, so this trick probably wouldn't work. Well, it turned out that in front of an energy master, it was impossible to condense a huge amount of energy without displaying one's own divinity domain, even if one had a consciousness. The black humanoid figure in the energy mass had already collapsed and could no longer condense. Boom! After using more than half of the scarlet energy mass, Yin Nuoxing threw it in front of the huge derivative that was fighting with Qing Jun and others like a god descending to Earth. Then, its huge volume collapsed crazily. In 5 seconds, it shrank from a size of 5 huge suns to less than the size of a star. "Oh my god! Retreat quickly!" Qing Jun's face turned green. He hurriedly propped up an energy barrier, stretched out his hand, and summoned all his people to his side. Then, using both hands and feet, he crawled out of that place. The huge derivative's head was slow by a beat. It stared blankly at the energy mass that was being compressed by the power that was crushing space. It revealed a very human-like expression of doubt. Then, the energy mass suddenly released a light that illuminated the entire starry sky. The huge derivative. ? Boom! Bang! The energy roar that sounded like the birth of the primordial realm really made I Ching and the others applaud. The distorted clan beat their chests and stomped their feet. They could not wait to pull out the guy who had taken control of the huge derivative and give him a good beating. This guy's brain was indeed fried. Cannon fodder was cannon fodder. Even if 1 or 2 high-level original consciousnesses were integrated into it, they could not be saved. Under the impact of the energy that opened up the void, Yin Nuoxing, Hui, and the others once again rushed out, killing the strong, distorted clan members who were being suppressed by the explosion of order power. The 8 original seeds also slapped their own juniors in the face. They found an opportunity to rush to the main world's first star. Like raindrops, punches and kicks poured down on the planet's barrier, causing huge ripples to appear and the cracks to expand continuously. There's no power guarding the first star. Chong Kong and the others are not here. Young Master Shin saw the situation, and his eyes suddenly narrowed to the size of a needle tip. They might not have been here from the beginning. I know, but there's no other way. Let's smash it first. Yin Nuoxing nodded. He had been mentally prepared ever since the weird battle started more than 10 hours ago. However, he did not have the time to think about it now. He could only smash it first. He looked at young Master Shun and said, "The main world has been suppressed. Hui and I have removed the suppression of the void in this world. You should go and deal with the matters of the remaining worlds. I Ching, you take 2 teams and follow them. Kill all the people who resist. Kill all the people on the list." I Ching, who was having a good time, was confused when she heard this. "List? What list?" Ask young Master Shun for it. Young Master Shun and I Ching. Young Master Shun wanted to say that he did not have a list, but after a moment, he realized that as long as they did not know each other, most of them were from the Long Sky Empire. After thinking about it this way, it made sense. After all, there were some ordinary people in other worlds, although those people were included in the 8. 5%, They were only implicated by the defending forces. If they were all wiped out, there might not even be 1 billion people left in the end. The energy barrier of the first star flickered violently under the siege of the 8 energy giants and Lady Qing and the others for 10 minutes before it exploded into dust. Yin Nuoxing saw the opportunity to use the sin of the world to bind the 8 big guys, letting them besiege the remaining strong, distorted clan members in the starry sky. There are still people here, but it's probably the last wave. After the barrier of the first star shattered, hundreds of people flew out from the huge red star. When they met, they attacked Qing Jun and the others in the most violent manner. They seemed to want to break out of the encirclement, but they were pushed back by Qing Jun and the people he brought out in an even more reckless manner. The scene was simply more reckless than anyone else. Suddenly, 2 huge energy impacts burst out from the star and covered the faces of Qing Jun and the others. Yin Nuoxing gave them a bath with Star's Fall and casually cut the star a few times, leaving behind a large scorched plain. He didn't even see clearly what the 2 powerful energy impacts on the ground were before they were destroyed by him. After a while, the whole star quieted down, leaving only the battle in the starry sky. The battle in the starry sky experienced a process of intensifying, balancing, and then slowly extinguishing. It was the power of the other side that was extinguished. There was not much power left in this void area of the distorted clan. Judging from a situation where I Ching and the others went to help young Master Shun and the others, those worlds no longer had any defensive forces, not even a divine being. It was estimated that this time, all of them were concentrated in this main world. The battle in the main world came to an end at a very rapid speed. In less than an hour, the war in this world would also subside. What about the 8 big guys? We returned to Yin Nuoxing's side and looked at the 8 big guys who had calmed down a lot and were standing in the starry sky, roaring from time to time. He could not help but ask, "How did you control them?" Control? No, I didn't control them. Well, I didn't control them. I just used some things to cover up their little consciousness, making them go berserk. Then I completely covered up their consciousness, just like now they can't do anything. Even their instincts are suppressed. Yin Nuoxing said. Hui muttered. Just now, they were fighting with their instincts, instinctively wanting to destroy that planet. Do you want to destroy their descendants? Who knows, but if that's the case, then it's really a family misfortune. Yin Nuoxing let out a long sigh. The descendants were afraid of the first few people and sealed them away. The 8 of them were resentful, so they opened the coffin and ran to find trouble with the descendants of their own family. The whole family fought with each other and hit each other's faces with sticks and bricks. The 2 groups of people fought in front of a group of intruders until their brains flew everywhere. Hui was speechless. After a while, he sighed and looked at the war in the starry sky that was gradually extinguishing, shaking his head. No, I still feel uneasy. I can't help but feel that something is. Yin Nuoxing was shocked. You can shut up. Don't learn from my crow's mouth and say, Hui didn't know when Hui had taken over his crow's mouth attribute. Now, just saying a few words would make people feel uneasy. Before Yin Nuoxing could say anything to dissuade him, a few soul seeds in his soul suddenly flashed wildly. It was a message from the people in the realm of the gods. After destroying the interference energy of the distorted race, this void region was no longer an obstacle for them. They heard a voice from the rear that they hadn't heard for a long time. Then, an urgent message suddenly came into his mind. It was sent by the little girl Yuan Kong. That girl used 3 seconds to turn Yin Nuoxing into a gray statue. Big bad guy. Those ugly red things are all rushing over. Where are you guys? They have a 7-ring. A 7-ring guy? The barrier can't hold on anymore. Everyone gather. The realm of the gods is in an emergency. Yin Nuoxing screamed with the highest voice he could reach in his life, scaring everyone who had just finished the battle. What's wrong? Hui was so frightened that he hurriedly raised his shield and pointed it at his surroundings. Figures flashed wildly in the space around him and gathered quickly. They all had puzzled looks on their faces. It seemed that none of them had received this message. Yuan Kong only had time to send the message through the special connection between her and the little angel. Yin Nuashing tried more than 10 teleportation methods to return to the realm of the gods in a second. After all of them failed, he was sweating profusely. His face was gloomy and green. He panted a few times, turned to Hui and the others, and said solemnly, "Those bastards changed homes with us. Damn it, I was wondering why none of them were here." Yin Nuashing scolded and hurriedly prepared a large-scale teleportation portal. He glanced at the 8 huge energy giants from the corner of his eyes. He hesitated for a second and waved his hand to bring them along. The situation in the realm of the gods should be quite urgent. The only good thing was that he and Hui only brought about 100 people. However, this was also the most fatal flaw. Without them, the creation's barrier could only maintain its normal defense. When the energy was depleted to a certain extent, if there were no instruction from the two of them, it would automatically shut down and leave behind a portion of energy. According to the message from Yuan Kong, that bastard Chong Kong had already entered the primeval realm. If the two of them were not here, no one could stop him. If the creation's barrier was opened, then everything would be over. Moreover, to be able to make Yuan Kong, that arrogant little girl, put down her prejudice against him in fear and call him big bad guy instead of big sister, it was enough to show how urgent the situation was over there. Damn it, those bastards. Are they crazy? Green scolded angrily. After a few decades, the army once again came to the realm of the gods. How deep was that group of bastards' obsession with the realm of the gods? I finally know why they haven't called Chong Kong over. It turns out that they have already called him over, and after some consideration, they chose to attack the realm of the gods. They don't even want their home anymore, I Ching said with a pale face. The sudden gathering of everyone made young Master Shun quite confused. He hurriedly found his place and returned to the main world. When he saw Yin Nuashing and the others preparing to escape, he quickly went over and asked, "What's wrong? What's so urgent?" "I don't have time to talk to you. Chong Kong has brought his people to exchange homes with us. The realm of the gods is in an emergency. We have helped you solve all the obstacles. The rest of the matters in this void area will be left to you to solve." Hui spoke so fast that his saliva splashed everywhere. "If you're still alive, we'll talk slowly." Young Master Shun's expression changed drastically. He silently took a step back and bowed to everyone. "Well then, I wish you all the best. Take care." Yin Nuashing and the others nodded. The huge magic circle suddenly flashed and disappeared on the spot. They had to hurry back. The distorted clan was no longer human. They were even willing to exchange homes. Chapter 1459. He had long said that those who were tainted by the power of chaos would lose their IQ and brains. Those from the underworld were a good example, and those from the distorted race were the ones who followed in their footsteps. Even he himself was not a good person. Occasionally, he would go crazy and tear down the first and second elemental realms. But at least he was still normal most of the time. However, the two guys before him were not normal at all. They could not figure out the logic in the past, but now they could not figure it out. Hey, their thoughts were like looking at the 3 elemental realms through the barrier of the first elemental realm. They could not see it and could not touch it. From the fragmented information that Yun Nuashing mentioned in their world, the distorted race had a mysterious obsession with the celestial realm. She did not know whether it was the obsession with the concept of order or the celestial realm itself. And it was not just the distorted race. Even those from the underworld were very obsessed with the celestial realm. The last battle of the Dark Age was the celestial realm. They would not stop until they destroyed the celestial realm. That's right. Apart from them, there was one more thing. That demonic shadow didn't look like a good person either. It was always talking about chaos and order. Perhaps the distorted race's obsession with order or the realm of the gods was inherited from it. Then the question was whether they were obsessed with order or the celestial realm. What were they trying to do? The sudden use of desperate gambit left them in a daze. Furthermore, this was not the same as the previous time when they were observing the celestial realm. This time, they had even resorted to the tactic of exchanging their homes. This was already at the level where they would not rest until one of them was dead. However, he did not want to see them destroy the distorted race's home and return only to see the scorched earth of the celestial realm. If they wanted to tear it down, he had to do it himself. It had been a long time since Yuan Kong sent out the information. Yun Nuoxing and the others had rushed back as fast as they could when they lost the connection to the celestial realm. But in this situation where they could not directly touch the light of the celestial realm, they had lost the concept of traveling and could only run blindly in the void. They had divided the upper and middle realms into hundreds of millions of regions of the same size. They ran across the regions and could not cross half of the void in one breath. That would cause them to lose the vague location of the celestial realm again, and it would be more troublesome to relocate it. So they could only use such a crude method to run back. But if they really wanted to run back, it would take 12 hours. Half a day. God knows what would happen in half a day's time. That bastard Zhang Kong had somehow entered the realm of primeval. As long as no one could control him, it would be a disastrous blow to the entire celestial realm. The little angel was desperately trying to contact Yuan Kong, but the special connection between the two of them was also restricted by the means of the primeval god. They could only talk occasionally and then lose contact with each other again. Their understanding of the situation was very limited. Now Yin Nuoxing and the others did not know the specific situation. The remaining elite combat force of the distorted race must be bombarding the creation's barrier indiscriminately. But Yuan Kong said something intermittently. It seemed that there was something else, but they could not hear the whole thing clearly. There was no way to judge. When the celestial realm lost the control of the two priesthoods, the celestial realm also lost their best defensive advantage. Even their top forces were on a long journey. Now, they could only pray that Zhang Kong and the others rushed to the celestial realm out of anger when they heard that their home had fallen. If that was the case, the situation would not be any better. Damn it, the power of the primeval god was too much of a hindrance. If he personally attacked the creation's barrier continuously, with all their forces, the creation's barrier would at most last for 2 days. If the two of them were there to liberate the creation's barrier, the duration would be 3 times longer. But they were not there. If I had known, I would have come out alone. If I had known. Yin Nuoxing gritted his teeth as he muttered. His teeth were about to break the void. Everyone was silent, including Hui. At first, they only wanted to get rid of the distorted clan, a thorn in the world of order. They did not expect to be raided. What was even more unexpected was that in this short period of time, Vast Sky had actually entered the primeval realm. This was completely unexpected. A huge wave of unexpected actions had caught them off guard. It was useless to say anything now. It was better to hurry back to the celestial realm as soon as possible. However, in this group of people, other than the 2 divine roles who were close to their peak, I Ching, Qing Jun, and the others who had to participate in the command and personally fight the enemy were not in particularly good condition. After the battle, just now, they were only left with their normal strength. Speaking of command, this time, they had mobilized the 3 main commanders, Jing Yuanji, Qing Jun, and I Ching. This was not what they had agreed on. Who knew that something like that would happen in the middle of the battle? The situation in the celestial realm was even worse. They did not know if the remaining people in the celestial realm and those who could command could control the overall situation. The most troublesome thing was that they had no way of contacting the people in the celestial realm. The only communication they had was the sound of the primeval god and the little angel every few minutes. Every sound was less than 10 words of information transmission. Based on the previous information transmission, the distorted clan had not been able to destroy the creation's barrier, but the barrier was showing signs of dimming. This won't do. Lord Phone, should we call for backup? I Ching suddenly said. Backup? Yin Nuoxing turned his head abruptly. His sharp eyes made everyone panic. They did not expect him to be so anxious. He was ready to enter a berserk state during the journey. Where's the backup coming from? This is the void, the world of order. Where is the backup coming from? I Ching quickly waved his hand. Lord Phone, please calm down. The last time the world of order surrounded the celestial realm, Yun took 3 deep breaths. He suppressed the turbulence in his heart caused by the tens of millions of simulations and judgments brought about by the situation in his heart. He pondered for a moment. You mean the Void Holy Court? In fact, when you were missing, we received some information from the Master of the Void Holy Court. The Distorted Clan is a malignant tumor in the world of order. Not only them, but even the Demon Gods League and the Desolate Devil Holy Court have dealings with the Distorted Clan. Moreover, it is said that in the early years, some of their direct descendants or their own family members died outside. The divine bodies left behind would mysteriously disappear, and they would not even have time to collect the corpses, I Ching said. Yin Yaxing and the others were speechless. Yin Yaxing took a deep breath. Then you could try to contact them. He did not manage too many things. These things were left to Hui and I Ching to handle. Since we did not mention this plan, he should not be able to contact them, so he could only leave it to this kid. I Ching nodded. Through the Soul Seed and other means, he contacted the Master of the Void Holy Court and the others. Seeing that the Master of the Void Holy Court had a serious expression, it seemed that he had succeeded in talking to them. After a short while, he gave them a no-problem gesture. Seeing this, everyone was relieved. In this terrible situation, there was still some good news. It was indeed good news. When I Ching dug out some things that the Distorted Clan had hidden for many years and told them about it to the Master of the Void Holy Court and the others, their reaction was no less than Yin Yaxing's. These people who had once attacked the celestial realm had once again gathered an army. Like streams of light passing through the void, the spearheads were all pointing at the same place. This time, they were gathering toward the common enemy. Wait, did you tell them that Long Sky is already in the primeval realm? Yin Yaxing suddenly said. The world of order is very weak now. Even if they gather together, they may not be able to deal with Long Sky. Hui and I have to go together. Don't worry, Lord Foam. I've already said that they will cooperate with us. The real battle has not yet arrived. We will not sacrifice our blood in vain. This time, let us cooperate with you. The celestial realm is the strongest flame and hope of the world of order. It cannot be extinguished. Cough, cough, this is what the Master of the Void Holy Court said. The others have more or less the same idea. I Ching said. Green scratched his head. It seems that the Abyss Death Mist and the Underworld have affected them greatly. Now, they are thinking about these things from the perspective of the world of order. Hui nodded. That's a good thing. If they did not band together, they would be wiped out by the Underworld sooner or later. However, this was not the time to rejoice. The Celestial Realm was still facing an unusually huge crisis. It might be the biggest crisis of this era. This time, a primeval god had really come knocking on their door. There is no way to restore the connection with the Celestial Realm. However, I can see the situation through the energy inside the Celestial Realm. Look, he spread his hands to both sides. His spiritual power surged. A huge spatial map suddenly appeared in front of him. It was only shown in his spiritual power through the spiritual connection. There was no real projection in the void. It was a region of the void and a cluster of light that showed only one world. The cluster of light was now surrounded by 300 layers of scarlet light. There is also a huge energy reaction inside the cluster of light. The reaction was stronger than the strongest energy that many people here had ever felt in their lives. It should be the primeval god, Long Sky. Around the region of the void, there were many stars of different colors. They surrounded the region and did not intend to move forward. It was as if they were waiting. Those should be the reinforcements. However, they did not know who had arrived so quickly. There is no distortion energy in the celestial realm. That means the creation's barrier is still there, at least for now. We can't tell how long we can hold on. Let's go back as soon as possible. This is the fastest we can go. If we go any faster, I will cross tens of thousands of void regions in one go. By then, we won't be able to find the exact location. Yin Nuoxing gritted her teeth. Hui smiled bitterly as he looked at the crazily flashing scarlet. Every flash represented a surge of energy. Perhaps they had launched an attack, or perhaps they had been attacked. Of the two, he felt that it was the former, and they were not gathering like the light spots outside. After all, their home had been wiped out. In other words, all the forces of the distorted race, including the chaos spawns, had gathered in the world where the realm of the gods was located. That was to say, at this moment, all the forces of the distorted race, including the chaos spawns, had gathered in the realm of the gods. Phone, I have a bold idea. Say it. Seal the world barrier. Destroy everything. Yin Nuashing? Question mark. After a moment, he understood what Feng Luo was thinking. That will have to wait until we return to the celestial realm. Now, I can only pray. I have to pray for many things. This time, I have to pray that they have not taken over the concept layer. Otherwise, there is no need to fight this battle. I will directly drag that world barrier and the vast sky barrier down with me. Even the primeval god will die with me. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. They had fought side by side with the observer for a period of time and thought that they already should have a better understanding of the habits of the observer. But they did not expect that under such circumstances, the observer could still so calmly say that the worst-sounding divination was the plan to draw the worst lot. The concept layer of the celestial realm is independent of the world barrier and only belongs to the celestial realm. I'm not that worried about the creation's barrier breaking. The celestial realm should be in an emergency situation now. At most, they will smash and burn that continent. Moreover, if Vaskai does not do anything, they will not be able to pry open those defenses. However, if they take over the concept layer of the world barrier, we will have to break our own arms and seal our own souls to fight them. Don't forget that Vaskai has already ascended to the primeval. Just hearing about the serious consequences sent chills down their spines. However, they could only watch and could not do anything to that world. Indeed, they could only pray. They could only pray that the creation's barrier could hold on a little longer. Just a little longer, and they would be able to return soon. Let's fight. At most, we will die. Even if we die, we will take a bite out of them. One of them imitated Yin Nuashing's tone and said through gritted teeth. His eyes were about to spit fire. How unlucky. Hui rubbed his forehead in distress. Attacking the distorted race's world was a sudden move. It was unexpected that they had been tricked and bombed into their low-level experimental world. He felt that Vaskai's initial plan was not to attack the celestial realm directly. However, he and Yun Nuashing's wanton destruction in their world had forced Vaskai to attack the celestial realm directly. He felt that it was impossible for their world to remain. They might as well fight until both sides suffered. They would either take down the celestial realm or destroy the celestial realm. Both sides suffered. Would they really choose this ending? It was impossible. There must be something else after this. However, he could not figure it out. He was not like Maple, who could see 100 million steps ahead of him. He could not predict everything, but sometimes Maple could not predict everything. He could only see further than others and had more foresight. However, he did not expect Vaskai to do this. Otherwise, he would not have let those guys spread the news. They wanted to lure people out, but in the end, they were all lured to the celestial realm. Brother-in-law, brother-in-law, I called you brother-in-law. Please come back quickly. The barrier is almost. A sobbing voice rushed into his mind, causing Yun Nuashing's expression, which had just stabilized, to become as dark as the void once again. He was really curious now. What exactly was the situation there that could scare the fearless little girl to this extent? However, he could not ask. After that sentence, there was no sound, and only he and the little angel could hear it. Well, although the little girl did not usually like him, she was still directly related to the little angel, so he could not ignore her. Now that he heard her cry like this, if they could not see a little bit of the situation here, they would have thought that the celestial realm had already fallen. However, the situation might really be very bad and urgent. It was so urgent that Yuan Kong felt that the void was about to collapse. We had been deep in thought since the beginning. He inadvertently caught a glimpse of Yun Nuashing's face, which was as dark as the void, and suddenly thought of a very important matter. Maybe it's not that bad. The people we left in the celestial realm can still hold on for a while. Yin Nuashing threw a sentence at his face. How can the primeval stage, Chong Kong, hold on? I was just about to talk to you about this. Hui grinned. This time, the creation's barrier was heavily damaged by the newly ascended primeval, which is Chong Kong himself. Once the creation's barrier is broken, the energy produced during the destruction will in turn bind him. It's an effect similar to a curse. Even if he is a primeval, even if he is a mid-level primeval, he will still be affected by the curse. He will not be able to move for a period of time. Yin Nuashing was stunned. Why don't I know about this? After all, the creation's barrier has never been broken before. Hui smiled bitterly and shook his head helplessly. And this is probably a small setting that only the guardian priesthood can see in depth. As the backlash comes from the order and rule level, non-order level beings like them may be more seriously injured. However, that will only bind him and a small portion of them for a period of time. At most, it can only hold on until we go back and stabilize our footing. Then, we can fight to our heart's content. That's enough. Yin Nuashing let out a sigh of relief. What they lacked now was this little bit of time. Observer? Just as Yin Nuashing relaxed, another voice sounded in his mind, which stunned him. It was a female voice. It was cold and indifferent. Although the voice was not bad, it sounded very awkward. He subconsciously replied, "Who is it?" Void Divine Court. The Lord of Void Divine Court paused after saying this. After feeling that there was no response for a long time, she finally remembered what she should say. "Min, I forgot." "What?" Yin Nuashing was stunned. All right. He now remembered that this was the Lord of Void Divine Court's voice. But what did she say? "I forgot my name. I only remember that my surname is Min, Yin Nuashing." "All right, Lord of Void Divine Court whose name I forgot. Let's not talk about this for now. We're rushing back. You're suddenly looking for me. Have you already gathered?" Min Nuashing's voice only came after a few seconds. Her voice was still cold. "We're still gathering. We just attacked once. The enemy's defense is very strong. There are also some things that we haven't seen before. I hope to get some information from you." "Huh? You're fighting?" "Fighting? Oh, you're fighting the void, right? You haven't gone in yet." "We can't go in," Min Nuashing said. "The world barrier is guarded by a strong force. We only succeeded once. Now the world barrier has been redefended by them. There are many strange things guarding here. It's difficult to break through." After looking at the information received from the Lord of Void Divine Court, Yin Nuashing understood what she meant by strange things that she had never seen before. It was the conscious energy cluster that they had just taken apart, as well as the giant chaos spawn. After learning about it, he told her the weakness of these things that were powerful but had their brains eaten. If you clear the void, don't go in first. That old Be Astra starred, long sky, will definitely leave something inside. Wait for me to open the way. All right, there's less than an hour until everyone is gathered. Observer, I'll see you in the void. See you later. We had been staring at his expression. Seeing that he had relaxed, he said, "I suddenly remembered something." Yin Nuashing had just turned her head when Hui said, "Didn't we get a divination from young Master Shen before the battle?" "I'm thinking, could it be that he was talking about the current situation?" Yin Nuashing and Jing Yuanji were silent for a while. They suddenly felt that it was very possible. However, it didn't matter whether it was true or not. Now, they were indeed fighting at home. This was the war that they had been waiting for. This war would happen sooner or later, so why should they care about it? They just had to fight. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.